Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning, headed into a holiday weekend. You know who's happy? Everyone who gets time off, I would assume. And probably Diego Luna, too. If you did not see RSL's midfielder last night, my gosh, 2 goals in the first 15 minutes for the U.S. national team. He scored them both. He scored 3 times in the last 2 games. They beat Guatemala 2-1. The U.S. will play Mexico Sunday night in the Gold Cup final, and Diego Luna is on fire. I don't know if you can punch your ticket to the World Cup a year in advance. You got to stay healthy. You got to be playing well a year from now, in form, as they like to say. And if you're not doing those things, then you won't go. But he's doing as much work right now as he possibly can. He's making a massive, massive impression. All right, we'll have more on that coming up. We got to switch to the Utah Jazz. A couple guys who, Diego's 21. Walter Clayton Jr. is older by a year, and Ace Bailey is 2 years younger. But, they're basically in the same phase of their career, right? Very young, a chance to make a big impression. They've got the Summer League coming up. The Jazz are going to be at the Huntsman Center Saturday night to kick things off or tip things off. And then they're off Sunday, and then they'll play Monday and Tuesday at the Huntsman Center. All the games start at 7 o'clock. And if you're going up there, there's going to be a lot of traffic. There's some construction up there. Saturday, there's an event at Rice-Eccles Stadium, so there'll be a lot of traffic. So if you're going up, go up early. Now, as far as these guys and what they're going through right now and what they have to say, we'll hear from them. They met with the media. Here is the 18th pick in the draft, Walt Clayton Jr. out of Florida.
How was your first few days of practice been?
First few days been good. Getting adjusted to the altitude a little bit, but overall it's been good.
What are they having you run through? What's kind of been the focus?
Us just learning each other, obviously, and setting some team principles, and everybody getting on the same page with all that.
What are the team principles?
Just like defense and stuff, how we where we sending the ball, what's our coverages, what's the calls, just everything, whenever you start in the team.
Have you noticed any difference, intensity-wise, schematically, of NBA games or NBA practices versus college practices?
I think it's about the same. The summer grind is different than in-season grind. So, college was grinding in the summer, and then right now we grinding.
Do you think is there a preference between which backcourt position they're having you play more of?
A preference for me?
Or for them? Are the Jazz having you focus on one or the other?
Nah, it's playing multiple. I think our offense, multiple guys can start it.
Do you think that you're comfortable playing off ball a majority of the time if it comes to that?
For sure.
How did last year in Florida, being able to play the point impact setting you up for the NBA?
I think it helped, playing at the SEC level, but I played point guard basically my whole life until that last year with ZP. My junior year, so it definitely helped playing at SEC level though.
How has been able to play that offense at Florida, wide open, kind of 4 out, 5 out, translated to the system that you're trying to acclimate to?
It translated a lot. Off the catch, just making quick decisions. They call it 0.5 here, so just making those quick decisions. Driving lanes, kicking out. Just getting space and getting open shots.
What have you learned from Isaiah and Keontae?
A couple things such as pickups. Everybody in the NBA swiping at your ball, so just pickups, and then they obviously teach me everything. About how they do stuff around here.
What's it like having Keontae out there at practice? You're seeing them just hang out while you guys are shooting, or just while you're shooting free throws? It's kind of his presence. What's that like?
Yeah, for sure, it's great. Obviously he's not playing summer league, but he's here though. He's around the guys he's learning, so that just tells me, he wants to build a chemistry and he want to win this year.
There's Walt Clayton Jr. Here's the 5th pick in the draft from Rutgers, Ace Bailey.
Your first couple days of practice?
It's been great. Learning from the vets. From learning new stuff. I got a lot of stuff to learn. I got a lot.
Who's been talking to you the most, and how what are you learning from them?
Isaiah and Keontae been talking to me a lot. Just from being in the right spots. Just being me. Just get comfortable. Take your shot. Just be Ace. Don't try to fit in. Just be who you are.
Is it nice having those guys who are not going to play on the team, like the summer league team, that they're out here helping you guys during practice?
Yeah, for sure. Not a lot of people probably had their vets come back in the summer league. They probably taking vacation time, spending time. But having those two come back, just showing me the ways, just pointing to me, that means a lot because they're taking the time out of their summer just to be with me and show us the way.
Did you know them at all beforehand?
Yeah, I didn't know Keontae that well, but I knew of him. But I knew Isaiah Clay for sure.
How did you guys cross paths?
We played against each other in high school. I mean, he put me out in the Elite Eight. So I've been knowing Isaiah for a minute in Georgia.
What have you enjoyed so far about practice, just these last days and being here?
The energy. I mean, it's great energy. It matches mine. I mean, we love to compete. High ceilings. I mean, we all playing hard. We laughing. I mean, but we still competing at the end of the day. Excuse me.
Omar feeding you balls there, and Walt too. Like, it sounds like you've been working with Omar Jr. for a long time, and kind of developing your game with him.
You said what?
Have you been working with Omar Jr. for a long time, and kind of working and developing your game with him?
I mean, yeah, we developed. I mean, he helped me, like out there, me, Walt, and the big guy. I'm trying to still learn everybody's names. There's a lot of names I got to learn. But he all helping us in all types of ways, from just shooting, from getting up early mornings with us, all of the above.
What are you looking forward to showcasing this weekend?
I mean, being ace, just being who I am. I mean, just being a great, humble kid, a great teammate. If it's the last person or the first person, just clapping them up, even if I'm sitting, if I'm not.
It's only been a couple of days, but what would you say kind of the style is that the Jazz are trying to get you guys to play?
Fast. I can say fast, so we got to get in shape. Fast.
You feeling the altitude at all?
I felt it the first day.
Yeah.
The second day kind of, but now I'm getting used to it. The first day, yeah, it was kind of there.
Are you getting settled in Utah and just kind of trying to find a place to live and that kind of stuff, and knowing where to even eat, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not from just the teammates, the fan base been there too. I mean, when I first got off the PJ, I had to get a phone. I went into Apple. I just felt the love as soon as I walked through the door. I mean, Ace, you need somewhere to eat? Ace, I can help you. Like, it's just awesome that I got that type of fan base at the Utah Jazz. So I'm just blessed to be in that position.
You and John also went to the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What was that like?
That was fun. I mean, not a lot of kids. We had Boys and Girls Club back where I'm from, but I didn't attend it. So it was fun, just pointing to kids that I didn't, telling them stuff that I didn't know at a young age. I mean, just pouring them in them. I mean, from them just asking me how tall I am. Everybody, they're not even read by the count. They just want to pitch an autograph. So it's just a blessing to be in that position.
Did you feel the love?
I felt it. As soon as I walked in the door, they started chanting, "We want Ace, we want Ace." I just loved it.
All right, there's Ace Bailey. Before that, Walt Clayton Jr. talking about summer camp as they get ready for the Summer League Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday at the Huntsman Center, and then down to Las Vegas for more. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we are talking football with Riley Jensen next. 3 Cougar quarterbacks. Who will be the starter? Riley's coming up next. Stay with us. DJ PK, the countdown to college football is on. We're basically 8 weeks away. Riley Jensen joins us now. Comes on every week during the football season to talk football. Riley, good morning.
What's going on, you sorry dudes?
Well, normally this would be a little early to bring you on, but it turns out we're going to have a BYU quarterback battle. And the first thing I notice about this quarterback battle is, why do we get all worked up about recruiting? There's a transfer from Western Michigan, a transfer from Utah State, and a transfer from Stanford. Recruiting. Who cares, Riley? Overrated. Not completely, obviously, but you get the point.
So I think this whole scenario is, well, tragic in a lot of ways. I'm sorry that anything happened. I was looking forward to what Jake Ritzlaff could do. I know some people are willing to move on, but I don't think that you can discount the experience that he has now at this point, and that makes it a little bit difficult. McKay Hillstead has some experience at Utah State. He's clearly a fantastic athlete. He's clearly someone who can spin the ball really, really well and knows where to go with the ball. He fits the mold of what I think A-Rod likes at quarterback, because an athletic quarterback can bail you out sometimes of a bad play call or just a bad situation. My worry about him is he hasn't been able to make it through college season, and I'm not being critical of him because I didn't make it through my Division I season, right? But it's hard, right? It's hard to know. He's going to have to make some decisions that play into the longevity of him making it through a season if he becomes the quarterback. I know this Hank Bachmeier kid.
Hank is the older brother. Don't make that mistake ever again.
Sorry, Bear. Yeah, can you believe I made that mistake? I mean, nobody calls me Riley Nelson, and nobody calls Riley Nelson Riley Jensen.
Well, we're laughing about it because I already made it.
Yeah. So Bear, from everything that I'm hearing, this is a quarterback that BYU really wanted when he went to Stanford. This is a kid that they really like, not just as an athletic and really good quarterback, but as someone that's a leader, as someone that's down to earth, as someone that is like willing to learn and get better. And so I know that BYU has been really excited about the fact that Bear's going to be there. So I think this just turns into a battle of you got to go with the guy that not only is a really good football player but makes the players around him better. And you do that, you know, people always say that, but they don't explain what that means. A way that you make a receiver better is on a 5-yard out, you put it on his face mask instead of stretching him out a little bit or putting it on his back hip, because then he can make a football move after he catches the ball. You make people better by helping them not to dwell too long on past mistakes. So there's leadership, there's accuracy, there's some different things as a quarterback that help you to make other people around you better. And from what I'm hearing about Bear Bachmeier, this is the type of person that he is. There's lots of people who love McKay Hillstead. I don't know him personally, but they like his moxie. And when he played at Utah State, he had a ton of moxie. He was an exciting quarterback, and then he was hurt. And so, to me, that's going to be the most important thing is he learned how to play quarterback at the Division I level and keep himself safe and out of harm's way. So I actually have learned a lot from you, DJ, on this one. You've always talked about how important a senior quarterback is, and I think that I'm not trying to depress BYU fans, but not having a returning starter with a lot of experience in the Big 12, it makes a difference this year, and there's going to be some growing pains and some learning pains that maybe you hadn't anticipated. So I feel bad about it. It's not what BYU fans had hoped for, but it makes a big difference when you have a returning starter. And as little as and the reason why a returning starter is you may have been Retzlaff was an All-American at Riverside Community College. Then he played in the Big 12. But one of the things the Big 12 does, they play a lot of 3-5-3. It's a different defense. And he hadn't had a lot of experience with that, and I think he struggled with it in his first year and a half. Last year he was pretty dang good and got a lot better against that. So it's one of those things where that's where experience matters. It's like, okay, well, I just haven't had a lot of experience against this defense or that defense or against this type of scenario, and that's why it's a little bit troublesome to me. I'm feeling bad about the situation because from the coaching staff down to the players, down to the fans' investment, there's been a lot of excitement about this season.
I'm going to make a statement and then get to the question, so bear with me. I think recruiting now is more important than ever because of the transfer portal. They don't get Bachmeier without recruiting him heavily before, and that's where you develop relationships. Recruiting, when it doesn't matter that you don't get him now, because if you get him later, then what's the difference? And I think that's what they did. So they already have a very good relationship with Bachmeier because they recruited him. And so you need to recruit these kids more than ever because they can leave literally at any time and be eligible at your school the very next season. So and that's why you need to recruit.
The second round is speed dating.
Yeah.
So you don't really have time to build the relationship there.
Yeah, precisely. Yes, well said. Yeah, you don't. You have to do it before when the kid's a sophomore in high school, and you may not get him until 5 years later, but that's the way of the world. Now, with this idea of he has all sorts of credentials, right? If you want credentials, if that's important to you, he's got them. And there's no question about that. And they believe that he won the job at Stanford during his brief time there, which says something. And he has the intelligence because he got admitted to Stanford, and that he'd be able to pick up the system. And I've heard some people say, oh, well, let's do like they did with Zach Wilson, bring him along. But the problem with that is they don't play an independent schedule to when you get to mid-October. It's virtually a bunch of patsies the rest of the way, and then you get Western Michigan in the bowl game. And nothing against them, but obviously that's not the top-level competition that you're going to face in the Big 12. And so my line of thinking is if it's Hillstead or Bourget, those two, they have to be conclusive. It's like the old boxing analogy in which they would say that the challenger has to really, really beat the incumbent because the incumbent is going to get the benefit of the doubt from the judges. And so you got to basically knock him out. And so I think that's where I'm going with this, because if it's close, why not play Bachmeier early? Because the early games, the first 3 games, stand to reason they would be your 3 easiest games of the season. And so if you think that Bachmeier is close to ready, let him have those 3 games so he's ready to go. So that's my question as far as you responding to my line of thinking.
So a lot to unpack there, and I think there's so many parts where you're right on. Number one, even before the transfer portal, I remember Matt Wells. I was sitting at the all-poly camp with him, and he was talking to a big-time player who had signed with USC, and you would have thought that they were best friends. This kid had signed at USC. They were having this interaction that was unbelievable, and I talked to Matt, and I'm like, man, you guys have a great relationship. And he's like, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Right? And that was happening before NIL. It's happening even more now. So this whole recruiting of Bear Bachmeier, you're right. There's even a volleyball coach and a couple of Division I coaches in other sports that I talk to that when they're recruiting in the portal, they're not looking for people that they don't know. They're looking for people that they already recruited because they already have a relationship. They already know what their personality is like. Because you're right, there's not as much time in that second round. Like you said, it's speed dating, right? And so there's a lot of that going on. And then as far as like the incumbent and the heavyweight champion of the world, all that kind of stuff, you're spot on. When I was coaching college football, the thought was the person who is the upperclassman has to leave no doubt that he's the quarterback, or the one that's been there longer has to leave no doubt that he's quarterback. Because if he's even, it's more healthy for your program to start the younger guy. And so why wouldn't you, if it's even, this is going to go to Bear Bachmeier. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be. I mean, there's going to be a competition, and there's going to be guys. So the onus and, you know, the difficulty of starting right now, there's going to be more pressure on Hillstead, in my opinion, than there is on Bear Bachmeier, because he's got to leave no doubt that he's the guy as the upperclassman, as the person that's been there, and that kind of stuff, because it's more healthy for your program to start a younger guy if it's even. So I totally agree with what you said there, and I don't think there's a coach in the country that I've talked to that doesn't believe that way or think that way.
Given how prevalent injuries are in college football, I think we should be intrigued with who's number 2. Who wins that second job? We know that they get some practice time, not much, but we know the third person is going to be off running the scout team or standing over on the side with a baseball cap. So can you rule anyone out? Because if you're second, you got to stay prepared because you know you're one snap away. And especially if Hillstead ends up being the starter, and we all have questions about his ability to endure the pounding.
Yeah, the one thing that I don't have that I probably should have a little bit more information on, I haven't asked much about the Western Michigan transfer, right? I do think that Bear Bachmeier and McKay Hillstead have all the tools to be able to be in the top 2. I'd be in some ways, just the way people have talked about them, I'd be surprised if both of them aren't in the top 2. But what I would say is when you're going to a major Division I school now, if you're in the top two, you better be playing and you better be preparing like you're the starter if you're the second string quarterback. And it's a very hard place to be because it's not even like a relief pitcher. A relief pitcher, like, you know you're going to get in eventually here. It's a little bit shorter notice, but a Division I quarterback who's second string does not play. You just don't play unless it's a horrendous performance or an injury. But you have to prepare yourself as if you're the starter, and that's I think that's easier for us as older adults now to say, well, yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do. But as an 18-year-old and your feelings are a little bit hurt that you're the second string quarterback and you felt like you should have been the first string quarterback, it's a little bit harder to prepare like you're the starter. And so it takes a special guy and a mature individual to be the second string quarterback and prepare the way that you need to as a second string quarterback. I can't tell you how many times second string quarterbacks have gone into the game and they're just completely unprepared because they didn't prepare as if they were going to play.
You had Getlzeiler there for all of last year. You had him for spring ball, and A-Rod has said multiple times and publicly he was looking to increase the percentage of completion up to 75, and they're excited and all this stuff. So you built the offense around him, and then all the other players at the other positions, they knew what the offense is going to be. Well, now he's gone. What do they do as far as offensive formation, game plan, just the system that they have? Do you keep it the same? Do you change it versus whoever the guy is? Because now you're up against it in a time crunch here. You got the summer where those kids can work out, and then you basically got 3 weeks. I guess you can say you got 4 because you should be able to handle Portland State no matter what you do. But I'm just wondering how does A-Rod deal with the offensive system with new people?
So these are great questions. Every offense has its core principles of like how you're going to run it and why you're going to run it. Now, you might have a guy that can run the ball a little bit better than another quarterback, or a guy that can throw it a little bit better. And what you do is within the framework of your offense is you highlight what your players can do. The good thing about A-Rod's situation right now is he kind of knows who some of his other players are. And so part of the offense that has been built is based on who these other players are. Now, he's going to have to taper the offense, or he's going to have to structure the offense a little bit around who's going to be the starter. But the problem is you're trying to find who the starter is right now.
Yeah.
So what I would lean towards if I were Aaron is, we got these players that can do this, this, and this. Which one of my quarterbacks can step in and get the ball to these players in these situations and this framework that we've already kind of set up a little bit, and then worry about, okay, well, McKay Hillstead's the quarterback. We can run him on some RPOs. He makes great reads, and he can make some great plays with his feet. But if I run him too much, we're going to get him hurt. So maybe we're just going to have a 3 to 5 play package that we run in certain third down scenarios where we're having him run on purpose. Because if you run a quarterback like McKay Hillstead more than 10 times a game, he's going to get hurt. Because you can have 3 to 5 planned runs for him, but he's going to have 3 to 5 runs that he just makes within playing football. And if you run him more than 10 times a game, he will get hurt. So he's the type of guy where you got to be a little bit careful about how you do that. Bachmeier's a big, strong kid. I don't know how well he runs the ball, but if he can, he might be somebody that you can run the ball a little bit more with. And so that was a long-winded answer as to, yes, you have to make some changes, but you don't have to make as many as you think. And then once you know who the starter is, you can kind of shape that offense a little bit more around his talents as you see what he can do. And what you trust him to do really is what it is.
going through all these quarterbacks, the one thing I can't see, and I think you just kind of touched on this with Bachmeier, I can't believe he's going to end up number 3. I don't know how all this is going to shake out. There's 3 guys for 3 spots, so like there's 9 options and all that. The one thing I don't think is going to happen is Bachmeier's not going to end up 3rd. Anything else could happen.
Well, so the other delicate thing about this whole thing, right, is you have a high-profile recruit that's coming in that's already transferred once.
Yeah.
I mean, the landscape of college football coaching is completely different than when I played.
Yep.
You have to constantly recruit players.
Including your own that are on your roster right now, which is why PK said.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. And if he's not second string, you better believe there's not happiness on that one. So I and you're talking about the quarterback position, and look, I know we're all prima donnas and we're all hard to deal with. Right?
You are.
But
I agree.
Right. You know, that's what everyone says. I mean,
We said you are. He was talking about me.
I'm pretty sure that, you know, if I were to go and have a conversation with Kyle, there might be, you know, a long warming up period because I was a former quarterback, right?
Oh, he would talk to you?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you'd have to peel back some layers here for a while before he would actually even, like, you know, kind of get down to the real Kyle Whittingham.
Just bring Spencer Fano with you. You'll be okay.
There's a natural distrust. I mean, I know who I would bring. It would be my old linebacker teammate, Cyrus Seto'o-Fainga, who's like his right-hand man. And that's who I would bring to get in with Kyle. But even then, it would take a bit. He's like, Cyrus, you're bringing in a quarterback to hang out with me? Like, what's going on here? But we are a little bit – we're also an insecure bunch. Like, there's not a position where you worry more about being replaced than that one because – when you play, you play. When you don't play, you don't play. If you're the second string like linebacker, you're going to play. If you're the second string running back, you're going to play. Second string tight end, you're going to play. Second string quarterback, you're watching and your uniform's really, really clean. And so there's this attitude of like you're the man, and also this insecurity that happens with quarterbacks that is a delicate balance, and you have to recruit a quarterback. And when they're high-profile quarterbacks that have been told their whole life that they're the best player that you've ever seen, there's just a different way that they think about their playing time than other players.
All right, Riley, we'll leave it right there.
I miss you guys. Call me more often. Why are you ghosting me? I mean, I'm willing to hang out. I'm willing. I'm ready and willing. Like, why are you treating me
You got
like,
pneumonia
you know,
last time. What are you talking about?
Dude, how about I went to the hospital? I'm that guy that goes to the hospital now for it. I spent 2 days in the hospital. What's wrong with me?
And you still didn't want to come in the 3rd day. I don't understand it.
I don't know what's going on with me, man. I got to get it together.
Your number was called, man. Literally.
well, I mean, you could have called me and asked me how I was doing. You're just like, okay, fine, I'll find someone else.
I did not. I said, I hope. I said, if you die, make sure somebody notifies me, and I'll show up. And nobody notified me, so I figured you were fine.
You and Kyle been hanging out too much. You were like, next man up, Jake. Next man up.
Literally, the show must go on.
I know. I felt it. I mean, I really did almost show up on that 3rd day, but my doctor was like,
all right, well, now that you're healthy, you can talk to all your contacts, learn a little more about Bourget, and get back to us. And we'll talk to you again when camp gets rolling, okay?
I will.
Right.
Thank you.
There's Riley Jensen. A reminder, DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Tim LaComb is talking hoops. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Tim LaComb, Jazz analyst for SEG Media. Tim, good morning.
Good day.
Tim, if it weren't for Nurkic, who's coming in at the age of 30, I think the average age of this Jazz roster might be younger than some of the rosters you coached at BYU. Reaction.
Oh, well, first of all, I think that's probably true. We always had that outlier, the 30-year-old living in a van down by the river. No, it's fascinating how young the Jazz are. I think, they've really done a good job of accumulating a bunch of young talent, and it looks like that's the direction for the year. Is last year they were insulated a little bit with veterans, and it looks as though with Colin gone and Clarkson being bought out and Colin's name being tossed around, that these young guys are going to get an opportunity to see what it feels like to try to win ball games on a nightly basis. And I'm excited. I think everything I've heard, the practices have been very competitive. I think the word I got out of it yesterday was, guys were, I think organizationally they're pretty impressed with the professionalism of the young group and how hard they're working, how hard they're trying. But we also know what young means, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Well, we got a couple of music men here, DJ, and it is my pleasure to talk to Tim LaComb.
I love that.
Well, that was one of us.
Can we get one of those? Can we break that up for a drop?
La la.
Brand out there a little more, La 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 la.
So with Summer League upon us, let's start with the big man, the big draft choice, Ace Bailey, and then drop down to Clayton for now. What do you want to see out of those two kids?
Well, I hate to ring my own bell, but I think you
can ring your own bell.
Ring that bell.
Never liked
no,
that song.
But we talked about positioning last week. Really felt like the Jazz did a great job of kind of smoke screening their intentions, and it paid off. I think they ended up getting the guy that they wanted. I think if you look at it, Bailey, there's a lot of reasons he should have gone 3, but that smoke screen caused a diversion, and I think the Jazz played it great. Ace is going to be really fun to watch. I've heard some say maybe the best prospect the Jazz have ever brought in terms of his ceiling and his upside. But with that, there's going to be a lot of things he's got to dial into. I think everybody wants to be a leader, but with these young guys, it's really important for him to learn everything first. The things he does well really can make hard shots. You watch some of his tape, and it's kind of those turnaround faders off one leg like you see KD shoot from time to time, and he's got an uncanny ability to knock in tough shots. So with some mentoring and some tailoring of his game, I think, the sky can be the limit. I expect him to be an all-star. I really do. I felt like he could, as I looked at the draft, I feel like he's a guy, and he just has all the intangibles and, such a young guy. And then I believe so firmly in the Jazz ability to develop players. It doesn't matter if it's, a guy like Mo Harkless, who came in off the street, and you watched him, through the year get better. I think Colin Sexton's story here is a development tale because when Colin got here, possessions were kind of like, I guess anymore, a $5 bill. They were pretty cheap. And I think he really tightened up his understanding of the game and knowing where the ball should go, understanding the pace and the push and the pull. So with all that being said, I think the verdict on Ace is I think it's really an exciting time. And will it prove to be a ton of wins this year? Probably not. But like I say, over time, I think, I see that guy as an all-star.
I love hearing the phrase, he makes tough shots. Because I know as a sports talk radio host, that's going to be pure gold for 20, 50, maybe 100 shows. Mm-hmm. Because that brings up the question of he makes tough shots. that can make you incredibly clutch because you need that person to make a really difficult shot against the shot clock running out. And you really need that. That's also code for I want my shots and I don't care how low percentage they are. One thing makes championship teams, the other thing can kill a good team, and it's a very fine line that can be debated a lot. And coaches can both love and hate that skill, and it takes a lot of discipline. You kind of reference that with Colin Sexton, right? There's a time. Colin always played fast. Well, there's a time to play fast, and there's a time not to, and figuring that out, it's going to be a work in progress. We're talking about an 18-year-old here. But doesn't that strike you as like one of the most fascinating things you can say about a player?
For sure. It does. It really speaks to, like I said, what his high level could be, but also, you noticed I said you got a lot to learn, and a lot of that is there's so much nuance. To get a shot in the NBA when you're being guarded by someone as big, as strong, as long as you are. So you have to understand the nuance of setting a guy up when you're coming off a screen. The pace of that. Kind of slow, fast, slow. The understanding of what a good shot is in a possession. And I think that's been, over the last couple of years, that's been stretched a little bit, but I think it's pretty discernible when you're watching a game to say, hey, that was in rhythm, and some others weren't. At the same time, you don't want to just bar that door because you want tough shot makers to make tough shots. So it's a very fine line. But it's one that's exciting because you love a guy who can, go find a shot. The Jimmer offense, people laugh all the time, but I think the beauty of that was Coach understood what kind of shots Jimmer liked and what he took. And, those high ball screens that we ended up setting a ton really gave him exactly what he wanted. It gave him an advantage with the ball in his hands and the ability to make a decision, pull up. He was so good on those pull-ups. So, yeah, you've got to work with them too. It's not just like, hey, this is a good shot, this is a bad shot. There's a lot of nuance in there. And so I think that's what, when I talk about development, it's not just your actual skill, but that IQ, that intellect of the game and where the ball should be at certain points.
Well, we've seen Clayton as far as big shots. My gosh, he had a slew of them right before our eyes on a national stage. And that was very impressive what he was doing there for Florida last season. No question about that. What are you looking for him? Is a little bit more of a fit in and see how it goes type of thing?
It's interesting because I think he's got a real ability to lead because, like you said, he's got a reputation to making big shots and winning. Was great at Iona and transferred to Florida. I think he's one of those guys. If you look at, the Ainge teams, you look at a guy like, Marcus Smart. You look at Rajon Rondo prior to that. They've always got kind of that ballsy, tough guard, that's going to do the hard things. And, most recently, Peyton Pritchard, who Ainge saw, just like Clayton was sitting there, and knew that was exactly what we needed from a DNA character standpoint. Somebody that's going to come in that gym every day and not let anybody, slide accountability, which when you can get a team-led, when you get a player-led team, it's just so much more valuable. So I think all those things, when you're building a team, you're looking at how can we not only impact the play on the floor, but, let's get some voices in the locker room for good. Let's get some guys that are high character. And it's my understanding they ended up getting him at 18, but they were speaking to teams all the way, my understanding, like from 12 on, about deals to try to get Clayton. That's how serious they were about him.
Good.
Yeah, Austin alluded to that they talked to a bunch of people before, they finally found somebody who liked the deal that was being offered. So that totally rings true what you just said right there. Hot Rod Hundley. Man, that guy to a lot of Jazz fans, he was the voice of the Jazz. It was so entertaining. But he said one thing that always drove me nuts. The young rookie. Well, the rookies are all young. And finally, Here's the old rookie, maybe John Tonje, 24 years old. Maybe he was just beating up on 18 and 19-year-olds with, who are less experienced than him, or maybe they really stole a good talent late in the draft from CSU to, I think, was it Missouri, and then to Wisconsin, transferred twice. What do you think?
Well, got a really good look at him in the BYU-Wisconsin game, and he was unstoppable. I think you saw his drive to score, and he just does not relent. It's always interesting when a guy comes into that position, but I think it speaks to kind of what they want in and around that room. And again, another serious, tough-minded guy that can score, really shoot it, hard-nosed guy. And so I think it's more interesting to me that's a common thing throughout all the picks is obviously the ability to score the basketball. In Ace's case, freakishly elite size. You talk about a 7-foot wingspan and over 8-foot standing reach. It's absolutely crazy how big this kid is. So you couple that with the stuff you got to work on skill-wise. But then you've got two guys in Tonje and Clayton that can really score, but they're hard-nosed guys and they're professional guys. They're about the right stuff. So that's the thing that stands out to me is, you look at the qualities of the guys they drafted, it can kind of give you insight into what they're trying to do.
You had to deal with honor code issues when you were coaching at BYU, obviously a high-profile one, and we just had a high-profile one. I kind of laughed that they chose 7 games, knowing that for the suspension for Getlzeiler, knowing that 7th game was Utah, because I think they knew, hey, let's go 7, include Utah, and we know Getlzeiler is gone anyway. So it looks like, yeah, we're serious. And it sends a message to everybody, a little bit of a, I don't know, not necessarily a wake-up call, but a reminder that, guys, you can't do this type of thing there. Just give us your take on the whole situation.
Well, it was, unfortunate, obviously, all of it. And, your heart goes out to everybody involved. But I think at the end of the day, BYU did the right thing. Those honor codes, can be signed and filed and never looked at again. And, the integrity part of that wouldn't be great. To say that, Jake's the only guy out messing around, I think that's one of the things that BYU fans don't quite understand is just how hard it is to be a young kid and in that position. And that commitment's important to the school. And, if there are incidents that make it out and obviously become very public, it binds BYU's hands in a lot of ways. But I was curious to see how this one went down just because things have shifted so much. Last Saturday, I was down in my guitar room. I had hiked and mowed my lawn.
That's a good day.
It was a good morning already. I do more before noon than the Army.
I think it's 9 a.m.
While I was down there, my wife yelled down, "Hey, someone's here to see you." And so in walked the new AD of BYU, Brian Santiago, stopped by after playing some golf. And we had about 30 minutes together. I didn't bring this up, but we just talked about the changes in college athletics. And it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to digest for BYU. I mean, they just definitely decided to be in the game. And I think a big part of that was they didn't want to be Vanderbilt of the Big 12. They really wanted to try to – they're going to go into this league. They really wanted to try to compete. And in order to do that, in this day and age, there's an opportunity to be above board for a lot of things. But I guess what we learned is, those honor code issues obviously still really important to BYU. And, until that is changed, I think this is probably what we can expect on these high-profile situations.
There have been other moves in basketball around the NBA. Any big winners and losers? Has Denver really added depth? Did Milwaukee make the right moves around Giannis, or it was a good move but it wasn't enough, or Denver doesn't have enough, or somebody else you got your eye on? Any bold statements you want to make right now so you can say, I told you last summer?
Well, I always do that. So, in fact, last summer, no, I'm just kidding. I do think Denver added good depth. To get Bruce Brown back, he was vital to them in that championship run. Like I said, just a guy like a Peyton Pritchard presence, a guy who'll come in and be about the right stuff. He'll be about the right stuff in practice, push guys, a pro. And so I think, adding him back and then obviously getting some depth behind Jokic with Valanciunas is really interesting. I really like Valanciunas as a player. He's always just been a problem. When you watch him, he's so big and physical. So, yeah, I think they improve for sure. And, Jokic has got to feel pretty good about that. The other team, I think Houston is going to be a problem. Getting Dorian Finney-Smith now, he fits their identity and their culture. I talked about that last year with Caruso and Hartenstein when they made those moves. And everybody was like, oh, yeah, whatever. No, those were really pivotal moves. Those were pivotal moves because they identified two guys like-minded that will bite your kneecap off, give you everything you got. And, you threw them in around a bunch of talented guys, and you saw the result. I think Houston's doing the same thing. When you've got KD in the half court, you've got Şengün. And Dorian Finney-Smith's a great kind of a 3-and-D pop to the corner guy, but also very hard-nosed. So in the West, outside of Phoenix, I think Houston has just done a bang-up job.
Tim, we'll leave it right there. We appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again next week after you've watched some of the Rocky Mountain Review Summer League. You got a few more thoughts on these young guys. We'll talk to you then.
Sounds good. And that last little comment about Phoenix was just a knock on Ishbia, but I couldn't resist because that's PK's hometown.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I thought, wow.
No, I mean, I was being facetious.
Okay. Now I didn't know that you were.
They have 7 shooting guards and 2 centers.
Okay, well, so you got to at least be strong on one position.
Positionless basketball. They literally don't have any forwards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's positionless basketball.
Hey, 5 of you guys, and then the next 5 put these wristbands on and check in for them. All right.
Thanks, Tim.
See you.
There's Tim LaComb. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are on the way.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
I want to put him at the point guard. I want to make him uncomfortable and see how he reacts. Being able to run the show, being able to play the 2, play the 3. He's comfortable playing that, but we want to push. And I think he's going to respond in a positive way.
That's Dallas Mavericks coach Jason Kidd saying he will push Cooper Flagg. Put a 6'9" guy at the point and put the ball in his hands. When has that ever worked, PK? Give me one example you've seen in your lifetime.
Well, you're talking about Magic. Obviously, He was a Flagg. He was a point guard since birth. I don't know that
anyone else is going to pull that off. Yeah, right?
Yeah. It's funny, Jordan pushes Russell, and it's a big hubbub, and Kidd pushes Flagg, and it's great. I don't understand it.
Different time, different place, different era, PK. There you go. It's a double standard. I think that he doesn't have to play point guard. This is the part about positionless basketball that makes complete sense that we've been seeing. If he could initiate the pick and roll even some of the time, the whole thing about giving teams different looks, and maybe he's not doing it 40 possessions a game. Maybe he's doing it, 10 times a game. You don't have to be Magic and have the ball in your hands every possession. But if you can do it well enough to do it once in a while, it gives teams a different look, and over time maybe he gets a lot more confident. Why not? See what he can do.
I don't know that he needs confidence to do that. I mean, that's something he's been doing his whole life. I still want somebody to bring the ball up. I don't want Flagg bringing the ball up. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think bringing the ball up is as big a deal as who runs the first or sometimes even the second pick and roll. If you can do that, you can really put yourself in the middle of the action, whether it's, points, assists, but just create good opportunities for your team to score.
Oh, I love it when you talk basketball.
Oh, man, I thought of you when this happened. because this is a story, whether it works or not. The Lakers signed DeAndre Ayton. $34 million this season with the money that he's making with the Blazers who bought him out, and then the money that the Lakers are going to pay him. So well paid. And he does put up stats, but he drifts during games, checks in and checks out, runs up and down the court at 2/3 to 3/4 speed. Now, having LeBron and Luka Doncic, can those guys, we all, veteran leadership, one guy keeping him in line, role model, blah, blah, blah. Is somebody going to get through to him? He's getting older. We talk about players maturing in their mid-20s. Are the Lakers talking themselves into something that might actually work, or just setting themselves up for the disappointment they felt in Phoenix and the disappointment they felt in Portland?
Yeah, I think the guy is who he is. Sign Patty Mills then if you're looking for that great veteran leadership. I already told you what I thought of that. That is so cliche and so overrated. Does the guy have a personal motor to want to compete at the highest level? That's what it boils down to. It's fortunate that LeBron has no hair already, because playing with DeAndre Ayton would cause him to lose his hair.
Pull it out, baby.
This is who he's going to be. But the Lakers don't have anything, so if he can give them something. Here's a guy who, when he was in Portland, he did not play because it was icy.
Yeah.
So he didn't leave his home. They talked about it for days in Phoenix. This is who he is. You expect him to be anything. He'll have some good games. He'll be able to help them. I don't think that they're looking at him as Phoenix did as the number one pick. Now he's a guy who was waived, essentially, so the expectations will be a lot different.
Dallas Mavericks are giving former Utah Jazz guard Dante Exum a 1-year contract, so he'll be back in the league next year in Dallas. NBA adjusting Greg Popovich's career record, removing the 77 games he missed last season. Change did not move Popovich from his top spot. He is the number one coach all time with 1,390 wins. It actually helps his career win percentage. Now he's at .628. So there you go. What he'll always have is 5 titles. And famed NBA halftime performer Red Panda suffered a broken wrist after a fall from her 8-foot-tall unicycle that she rides at halftime of games while she balances and flips bowls with her feet onto her head. Took a fall at the game, ended up with a broken wrist. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
I want to see what calling a game feels like.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to see.
Getting in the booth.
Getting in the
you
booth,
saw that
man.
Tom Brady paycheck. And you saw his first couple of games, and you're like, I can do that. I can do that. 320? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it was funny. No, I've always I feel like impersonated guys that call the games and stuff like that growing up, and I don't know, I thought it would always be fun.
You
just
want
jump
to
in there.
throw up a random clip and you commentate it for us real quick? You don't want to do that?
I don't like, no.
You don't want to try to work through some improv here?
No, that's not, yeah.
Do a table read?
That's what it felt like right there. I just felt like,
Please, God, no, sir.
No.
I love where your head's at, but I feel like the preparation involved for calling a game, like truly sitting in the booth, color commentating, has got to be.
Player names is where I.
Yeah, that and the constant swearing, that'd be something on the network. You have to dial that back. Fine on a podcast, but not so much on a network football broadcast.
Swearing jumped out at you?
See if Travis Kelce can slow that down.
Well, obviously he would. You think that's an issue?
Probably not. He would probably be able to control himself, but it's pretty funny in that clip while he's talking about it. Not even close.
Well, he's just trying to build his brand. That's what he's doing.
Yep.
So you
and he's
going to
need
boys.
And he's going to need to do something with his time after he's done playing. So why not this? Give it a shot. More games than ever are being broadcast, whether it's NFL or now college football. Games everywhere, broadcasts everywhere. If he's got a knack for it and wants to do it, he can get better and do it. Certainly like the name recognition, the celebrity for sure. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
NCAA's created a special one-time transfer portal window from July 7th to August 5th where athletes who would not have made a roster in their respective sport, 105 in college football, can enter the portal. They'll be assigned a designated student-athlete tag. BYU quarterback Jake Getlzeiler could be assigned this tag by BYU. Deadline for designations July 6th. Then they can hit the portal with no issues in transferring. Schools have full control in naming their designated student-athletes. Players do not have to move. So guys who don't have any idea are about to get bumped at quote-unquote lower-level schools. How else would that work?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand this in the least.
They used to have, the scholarships and the walk-ons, and they have more than 105 players.
This is the college football version of the waiver wire.
Right?
But who's going to be on it?
Jake Retzloff.
Well, Jim, but there'll be other guys, too.
Yeah, but he may be the headliner.
But somebody who's walked on at Ohio State and Oregon may now be getting a roster spot in the Pac-12 Mountain West Big Sky and bump somebody who's already there. Some of those schools may be able to up their rosters and find some players. It'll be a scramble. It's like you said, Yak. It's a waiver wire, a bonus portal.
Yeah, but who would want these guys? I don't understand it.
The expectation is they're not going to be top-of-the-line players, but to DJ's point, it could be a guy at Oregon who may be the 110th guy, could go and be like the 80th guy at the G6 level.
He's already gone. This is a big nothing to me.
DJ PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
1-2 pitch. Strike three called. There it is. He got him with a slider. Strikeout number 3,000 for Clayton Kershaw. History at Dodger Stadium. They will stop the game. Kershaw doffing his cap to the crowd. This adoring crowd here at Dodger Stadium as Clayton Kershaw enters the 3,000 club, just the 20th member and only the 4th left-hander in the history of the game with 3,000 strikeouts, every one of them coming in a Dodger uniform. He swings, and it's a base hit to right. Ohtani around third. He comes to the plate. Dodgers win! Dodgers win! The 15th career walk-off hit for Freddie Freeman, and the Dodgers come all the way back to win it 5-4.
Dodger fans get some history, and they get a 5-4 win over the Chicago White Sox, who continue to struggle. They're 30 games under 500. But a magical night at Chavez Ravine. 125 years of Major League Baseball. 126, I guess, now. And this is the 20th pitcher ever to do it. Rarefied air for a guy who's already got an MVP and a World Series and 3 Cy Youngs, and now he's in the 3,000 strikeout club. PK.
Yeah, I watched that game, and he got it on the called strike, and it was something to behold. The place is so funny. Right from the first inning, he get 2 strikes. And you can feel the buzz through the television, and you're waiting. And he had the most swing and misses he'd had all season, but he hadn't gotten the strikeouts. And the strikeouts were not coming, and you could see when he got 2 strikes and somebody put the bat on the ball, there was a groan. It's almost like, if there were 2 outs and it was a routine pop, they wanted the fielder to drop it so he can get another shot. And so you had that going on. And then when he got it, my wife was sitting there watching it with me, and Will Smith's the catcher. Why didn't he go out there to congratulate him? I said, because they clearly had been told, all of you, get off the field as soon as possible, and he's going to walk from the mound to the dugout and let him have the spotlight completely, because it was kind of weird. Strike 3 called, and it was just like it was the 1,457th strikeout for the catcher. The inning is over, and you know how they just go back to the dugout. And as I was watching it, it was obvious Will Smith knew what he was doing, and everybody else knew what they were doing. So they made sure they got ahead of him, and so that he could have that walk off the field completely and totally by himself. And then he stands there in front of the dugout, acknowledges the crowd, and then some players come up to him, and then he goes in the dugout, then he has to come back. I think it lasted, they said, 6-7 minutes. And yeah, it was history, man. Absolutely, it was history. And it's cool, and I like what Kershaw said afterward. And the Dodgers came back and won the game. A little bit of a footnote, made it more fun, I guess, for the folks there. But he said, when he was younger, he didn't appreciate the opportunity to be in the Dodger uniform the whole time because he's from Dallas, and there was talk about going to the Rangers and all that stuff. He says now where he is, he really appreciates the opportunity to have all these strikeouts with one wearing the same uniform with the same team and all that. And he said, I will finish my career, meaning I would think that means he's retiring this year. I don't know that. But there's something to be said for that, and that's really cool.
Only the third pitcher to get all 3,000 strikeouts with the same team. Chris Sale, Garrett Cole up next. Maybe in a few years we'll see them. They're both still, looks like they're capable of maybe putting up 200 strikeouts a year. So for Chris Sale, that means 2 years. He'd be 38. Maybe he can get there. He's over 2,500 strikeouts. And Garrett Cole needs about 750 strikeouts. He's 34. So can he get 200 strikeouts a year for another 4 years? Those would be the next guys up for 3,000. What we don't have is guys in their 20s on any kind of pace to get there. There's a few guys who can still get there, but with guys throwing fewer innings and missing years with the surgery, it's getting harder and harder to pull this off.
Well, we'll see what Skeens does in 6-7 years, where he's at.
Yeah, it'll take a while. He's not to I don't think he's to 1,000 yet, is he?
Oh, he's just getting started.
Yeah,
he's in his second year.
So how can he be to 1,000?
If he was 1,000, he would get 9,000.
I saw him on a list. I'll look it up later. Whatever. It'll entertain me. The other games around Major League Baseball, Jose Altuve, 2-run single. So he's now on the Astros all-time hit list. He's now number 2. Beat the Rockies 5-3. Braves beat the Angels, Matt Olson, with a grand slam in a 7-run 6th inning to win that game. And Toronto had an 8-run lead and blew it. And then held on to win. 11-9. Woo! Sweating it out. And they're now tied with the Yankees for the lead in the AL East. So look out. Here come the Jays.
I am looking out. In fact, I'm going to look out right in that stadium here in a few weeks.
That's right. It's on the list. Checking another ballpark. The Bees lost to Tacoma 9-3. Game 3 in the series tonight. First pitch 7:05. Tony Park's on the call at 6:50. Also, Major League Baseball starters out. PK, any snubs? Anything that bothers you? I mean, there's a couple positions where there's more than one really good player, and somebody had to be left out. So I don't know if it bugs you that much or not. Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso at first base. Freeman wins. Alonso does. I mean, I'm assuming he'll be named here when they name the reserves, but he won't be a starter. I don't know if that one bugged you.
I would say Acuna would be the one because he's had the surgery. But over there in the American League, man, Jacob Wilson from the A's getting the job done, and he's going to be an all-star. And Jacob Wilson is from one of the higher learning institutions that I attended, but you may not think of
Grand Canyon.
It is Grand Canyon. He is an Antelope. I think his father was coaching there or something, so he went there. And NAU doesn't even play baseball, so you can't have them.
No.
And so that's kind of cool, Grand Canyon. They've had a really good program for a number of years. They've had major leaguers. Tim Salmon for the Angels, I think, probably would be the most well-known.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL. Hashtag golf.
PGA Tour contesting the John Deere Classic. Preston Summerhays, Zach Blair, Patrick Fishburne, the locals in the field this week. The last full field event stateside. The Open Championship coming up. A lot of guys
Scottish Open next week.
Yeah, a lot of guys are playing that Scottish Open next week and then the Open Championship in 2 weeks. But the John Deere Classic this week, so we got the locals to keep an eye on with the action starting today. DJ PK.
Hashtag NHL.
The NHL and the Players Association and international officials finalized a deal that had been agreed upon a while ago. They're going to send NHL players to the 2026 Milan Cortina Olympics. It'll be the first time the NHL players have been in the Olympics since 2014. So get ready for a nice little mid-season break for your Utah Mammoth. When they announce the schedule here in a few weeks, it'll all become clear.
I'll be here.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. All right, the question today coming up. We got tickets for RSL to watch RSL take on St. Louis City Saturday night, America First Field. And we'll give those tickets away in the 8 o'clock hour. DJ and PK, the question of the day is next.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
What the Jazz didn't do last night is they did not reach on Ace Bailey by any means. The guys drafted right behind him, Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, Yegor Dehaman, they probably don't have as much just natural skill as he has. Plus, he's got this physical body. Like, the Jazz didn't just draft a physical freak with no basketball skills. They got a good combination of skills and measurables.
They don't have to sell anything with Ace. When they drafted Trey Burke, they really had to sell it that he's a winner.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really good at anything.
Right.
Dante Exum, you had to sell that he's going to learn to shoot. There's really nothing that you have to, sell it with this dude. The ceiling is there. He's super skilled. He's huge.
No, this isn't the Jazz trying to be smarter than anybody in the room. In fact, I think they're just not overthinking it. It's a huge player with a ton of skill. Great. That's the sell. That's what you're excited about.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time for the question of the morning. The esteemed Brett McMurphy has the Utes in the college football playoff after winning the Big 12 Conference. Now, wouldn't that be a great bounce-back season? Did you expect these responses, PK?
I don't know what they are.
Aha! Well, there's Jared lecturing Utah. They haven't learned about being overly arrogant in the preseason. Question mark. Well, it's not they. It's Brett.
Sure. Yeah, I get your point.
But it is assigned to the Utes. Vernon, that's how they got in trouble last year, getting arrogant and listening to someone's opinion and getting overly confident.
I think they got in trouble because Cam Rising didn't get down.
Bing. Preseason rankings, in someone's opinion, proves diddly squat. They still have to show up for the first game and play. I don't agree with 11-1 season predictions. They still have to go to Morgantown, Provo, and Tempe. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. They don't have to go to Tempe.
Except they do not have to go to Tempe,
no, they play,
take that out.
Yeah, they play Arizona State at home. But they do play those 3 all in a row, and that on paper looks like it could be a difficult stretch.
Well, it's supposed to be a difficult stretch.
It is. Stuff isn't supposed to be easy, please.
Yeah. So then I think you can look every team and say, wow, that's a difficult stretch in the Big 12. Literally every team, because this conference has a lot of talent in it. And so, yeah, I get that. But I'm not really worried about the schedule. Because you don't know. Oklahoma State was supposed to be a pushover by the time they came to Provo last year, and it took just like every bit of the 60 minutes for the Cougars to win. So the schedule is just that. It's the schedule, and it'll be hard. Conference games, I've always bought in, even when they were in the WAC and Mountain West, obviously, and conference games are hard. Teams get up for conference games because they matter so much. So, yeah, it's going to be hard. But I can see where McMurphy's line of thinking is, because I look at teams when I do a poll or try to see, is this team going to be able to recreate what it did last year? I was talking to this with somebody just the other day about one-score games. And one-score games, not where a team is up by 13 and gives a late touchdown.
Right, yeah,
I'm talking about a legitimate one-score game right down to the end. The Cougars and Devils had a bunch of them last year. And to be able to recreate that is awfully difficult because things really have to go your way. And we know that football takes fluky bounces sometimes. Like in Kansas State, for the Cougars. It seemed to bounce their way. It was like a 3 or 4 minute stretch there where the ball is all bouncing around. We remember the Kingston one and then the fumble return. And it has to bounce your way. And it happens sometimes, right? And so I look at teams that have a bunch of narrow wins and figure, okay, say they have 4. 1 or 2 of those the following year, just because of football, will probably be losses. Now, the flip side is if you have a bunch of narrow losses like Kansas had last year, they went through a stretch where it seemed like every game was a 1-score loss, and it was right there, and something crazy was happening. And the Utes obviously had a disappointing season, but they had a bunch of games that they were right there, and if they have any form of offense, they can win. They even as screwed up as last season was, they were just a few plays away from winning 7-8 games. And I know that's what we do in sports, but I'm trying to take emotion out of it and fandom out of it and look at it as rationally, as logically as possible. And so if I do that, I'm thinking that, man, if they get any kind of offense, they should be in the mix. Whether they're going to win the conference, it's your guess, my guess, whomever, Brett McMurphy's guess, anticipation, prediction. That's all fun stuff, right? But I think they have a legitimate chance to get in November and have that opportunity.
If they keep their quarterback healthy this year, which obviously hasn't happened the last 2 years, but if they do, if he comes anywhere near replicating what he did at New Mexico, the defense looked really good last year, and it looks like it ought to be really good this year. So it shouldn't take a lot of offense. It's not like the offense is going to have to be great, and doesn't it have to be better?
Well, if Dampier's healthy, absolutely it will be. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
So that's what he's banking on.
I understand. I know exactly what he's banking on. Yeah, I get it. I don't necessarily know that that's good enough to put them in first place, though. I guess you don't have to be first or second, and then win the game in Dallas there, or Irving, or wherever it is. Was it not Irvine? What's Arlington?
Arlington.
Yeah.
Irving was their old stadium.
And I was going Irvington. I was combining the two places.
Combining the two places. And emerge these towns.
I was trying to think of it. But, yeah, so get to that point. I mean, it's certainly conceivable, especially when you think about they don't even have to win the regular season. You only have to win the one game. If you just finish in second place, you're good enough and you're good to go. So I could see where he would think that. I probably wouldn't pick it myself. But that's the two different things. I'm going to look and pick a conference standings, but I'm not going to pick who's going to win the game in Irvington.
That's going to become a thing now. Just embrace it.
Let's go to Irvington.
Let's go to Irvington for the Big 12 Media Days at the Star, and then we'll be back to Irvington
Even
for
though
the
it's in
conference.
Frisco, so
it doesn't matter. It's all Irvington now.
Irvington?
Yeah, merge them all together. Why not?
They call it the Metroplex. It's just one big area anyway,
It's
right?
true, yeah. Isn't Arlington actually sits between Dallas and
it's
Fort
like
Worth?
the
Doesn't this
same-
thing
right
draw
through
from
the
both?
middle.
Yeah, it's right in the middle.
I mean, it's like
Sure.
L.A. It's, driving across it is, hour, 2 hours. You've been stuck in traffic down there, I know, because you told me about it. Yeah. There was when we were just starting out, there was a radio station down there that was held up as the example of all things awesome in radio. And so you were there and stuck in traffic, so you got to listen to it. It was raining and parked on the freeway and not moving. And then you told me, like, yeah, they're saying stuff on the air that definitely wouldn't fly here. That's we can kind of be like them, but we better not be really like them because we'll all be in trouble.
Right, their standards were something that would not fly in our community. The stuff that they were talking about, and the Cowboy season was over because it was basketball season, and I flew into the Dallas airport, and I had to drive all the way over for basketball at TCU, and it was a Friday, so it took me a good while, and I did turn on the station. And it was just stuff that, like, oh, my goodness gracious.
A little closer to Howard Stern than what we're doing.
Totally, 100%. I was really shocked that that's what they were doing and what they were discussing, something that we would never discuss. And then there was some bootleg sound of a Van Halen record that they had, and they were talking about. I could live with that, but the other stuff that they were talking about,
nope.
That is a satellite radio discussion, man. I couldn't believe it. So it stuck with me. But yeah, I wouldn't even want to talk about that. I mean, basically, if our guys did, I would say, "Come on, guys, we don't need to talk about that."
Oh, pulling back the curtain. That's an epic line in a meeting a long time ago. Come on, guys. So to get back to Brett McMurphy and get this thing back on the tracks, I'm the one who did that. Brett McMurphy, here's the other thing he's leaning on. And I think that, and this is another thing you can't guarantee with injuries and all that, but as much as you hear people saying great things about the Utah defense, and you can look at previous years and back it up, and people say great things about the offensive line. And so as much as we talk about, can this OC do this or that, and can this quarterback do this or that, and those are important jobs, so it's totally fair game to talk about what they might be capable of. The thing everyone seems to agree on is that the Ute offensive line is going to be awesome. Now, to be awesome, it has to stay healthy. We get that. But sitting here in the preseason, man, it's getting pumped up. They got a first-round draft pick in that O-line. They might have a couple of draft picks in that line.
Oh, they most definitely have. They might have 2 first-round picks.
And dominant from one tackle to the other. So when the O-line is awesome, well, you can pretty much do anything behind it.
Well, yeah, I would be a little bit cautious on that because the guys that are expected to go high were on the team last year, and I don't know that they're any better.
And you got to keep the QB healthy. Well, but I mean, they are expected to dominate. Now we'll see if they do.
And the defensive line, I mean, they have a lot of irreplaceable parts. They always seem to do, but at the same time, they're missing 2 studs up front.
Took a big hit.
One at BYU and Tafuna being the other. So it's going to take a little bit of. I don't know that I can just come out and say, "Wow, they're going to be awesome."
But I get why he's leaning into this pick. I get how he got there. Now I think you could get a whole bunch of other places, and we'll get into that in another segment. There's plenty of other teams you could have picked that would sound just as reasonable.
Yes, I think it would sound more reasonable, actually.
Okay. Because those are who you'd be picking and who you will pick, and what we'll hear more of when you're at Big 12 Media Days.
Right, but I still say that this team, I expect it to be in contention in November.
So will this standings look like the standings last year? Like we know the 2 teams that got to, what was the name of that town? Irvington? Yeah, they got to Irvington and played for the title, right? We saw ASU and Iowa State there. But there were 4 teams tied at 7-2, and there were 3 more teams 1 game back. And what was so stunning last year was that the teams that got picked at the top were way down at the bottom, and the teams that were at the bottom were way up at the top. But the fact is, if you picked any of those 7 teams, it wouldn't have been nearly as outrageous because there were literally 7 teams within 1 game of going to Irvington.
Well, I think some things have to happen in order for that to happen is that you have to have an absolutely horrendous team that everybody beats, literally everybody beats. So you're it's not a guarantee going into it, but afterward you got the win. And we had that with Oklahoma State and to an extent, Utah, right? So the teams that we thought would be tougher, circumstantials, and they weren't. So that gave teams wins. And I don't know necessarily if we're going to have 2 teams that you would expect to be better and go a combined, 2 and 18, right? Is that what it was?
2 and 16.
2 and 16. Yeah. So if we have that, I think there's a likely chance. And also the fact that it's such a large conference and you don't play so many teams, that really factors into it. We had this to an extent with the Pac-12. You played your teams in their division, so that was 5 games, and then they had the crossover games. So what, you were only missing 2 teams on the other side? Is that the way it played out?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's not that much. Here, you're missing a lot of teams, and so because of that, I think that leads to a more jumbled conference standings because, well, you didn't have to play this team, you didn't have to play that team.
It might have sorted itself out.
Yeah,
if
and
they
I
played
think it
each other.
tends to do that, and you have the logical standings of everybody played each other, and the good teams, most of the good teams beat the bad teams, and so you had that order and descending all the way to the bottom. Now, with so many teams missing each other, I think that lends itself to more teams being closer together. You look at the Cougs, right? They didn't play Iowa State and Colorado last year, right? And so they didn't have the opportunity to get losses to good teams. Utah did play both of those teams, and they lost to both of those teams. So you have it's such an, not the word isn't imbalance, but it's just, to me, in my mind, because of the almost like haphazard nature of a schedule now, that you are in the situation where you're going to have these teams that can be, standings are going to not be deeply separated from second place to fifth place or whatever it might be.
Well, they can ride that defense and they can ride that O-line. I mean, that's always been the team is built the way Kyle Whittingham would wish a team to be built, right?
They always are.
Now, can they execute it?
When did they not?
Well, I mean, they don't have an O-line like this every year. I guess to your point.
I mean, they had it last year. It's the same guys are back.
Right, but they weren't back last year. Did you know they were going to be this good?
I knew Spencer Fano was going to be this good.
Yeah, Spencer
Absolutely.
Fano.
I'm sure
agreed.
Yock knew Spencer Fano was going to be that good.
He was back, and he was changing.
News.
He'd already been on the field as a tackle, and he was changing sides, but nonetheless.
Hell, he's so good he could play two positions at once.
Tackle and guard.
Yeah. He'll hike the ball and then be the lead blocker on the sweep. I mean, he came in from literally day one.
He was supposed
if
to
you
be the
come
guy.
in from day one and you're a big-time player at Utah, you are an NFL player.
Yeah, that's pretty much established now. That's
right.
That's what's happening.
Now, the offense is going to be better, but I wouldn't necessarily point to the O-line because the O-line is what it is. It's what's going to make the offense better is not the O-line because the O-line is already there and already been doing its thing. It's going to be the transfer from Washington State. Obviously, it's going to be Dampier and those types of things. Those are my two guys at the top that I expect to have big seasons. What's the kid's name? Parker. And with that in mind, that's where I'm going. The O-line has already been established in my mind. It's not new. Now it just has more weapons behind it. If this thing works, certainly the offensive line is going to be a critical component, but it was always going to be a critical component. It's going to be Dampier with his electric ability to get out there and then trying to tackle that dude. Good luck. And then obviously the running attack, which they always seem to have anyway. So I totally get what Murphy's saying. Absolutely. I buy it. And also I think there's another aspect in that Utah, and I'll go to my grave saying this, at least now, maybe 5-10 years from now it'll change, that they are the most disrespected team in college football. Or overlooked, not disrespected. The most respected, overlooked team. They're not overlooked. They haven't been overlooked in years. And this is a classic example
of Brett McMurphy not overlooking them.
Right. But yet, they're out in Utah. It's like the Van Horn thing years ago. Oh, man, how come you have a little axe to grind that you weren't recruited by the Pac-10? And I was sitting right there the day before the draft because, nobody comes from the WAC and is the second player and it was understood he was going to go number 2 behind Duncan at that point, right? And so you just assume, there are two things they assumed about Van Horn. He wasn't recruited by the Pac-10 and he was a Latter-day Saint. And he was neither. Not that it mattered, but they just assumed a white guy from Utah, right? And he was recruited by the Pac-10. He just chose to go to Utah. And it's the same thing. Utah, they're just overlooked. No, they're not. They get enormous amount of respect, and this is just another latest example of it. And all the respect that they get has been earned. That's what's so cool about it. Everything that they've accomplished as a football program has been earned.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. While the Utes are picked, there are other teams that could be picked. We will get to that next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Coach Ron McBride's hanging out with us.
This is Under the Radar. Lavani Damuni, Lander Barton, Logan Fano.
Oh, yeah. The Fano boys, both of them, the tackle is pretty amazing. You know, I mean, you look at him, he looks different than everybody else.
Talk about Spencer.
Yeah. The two offensive tackles at Utah are very good. BYU tried to steal those two guys.
They did?
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
You got to be kidding.
No, hey.
Coach.
Hey.
That seems like
I don't make these things up.
that seems like you're repeating rumors, Coach.
No way.
You make it seem like BYU maybe had some money to spend that they were throwing out there.
That is correct.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is The Doors. Jim Morrison died on this day in 1971. Brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com.
I remember it, man. I couldn't speak for like 2 hours when I heard the news.
You would have been pretty young. Pretty young to be that hardcore into The Doors. Yeah, that's more like it right there.
I'm kidding.
I thought so.
I've since read a lot about it and all that stuff.
Was he in Paris?
With it. I got pictures from the gravesite from somebody texted me a name that everybody would know in this community. Texted me pictures when that person was there one summer a few years back. So I have that on my phone. And then I turned around 2 years ago and texted this person the gravesite of Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers. I said, I realize it's not the Doors, but I still think it's cool.
Yeah. So, your move. You guys can have the tennis match.
Difference
for the next
in income.
Rock star.
One can go to Paris, and I went to Macon, Georgia. It was a little cheaper.
A little bit. Saved a few bucks.
Yeah.
Brett McMurphy has the Utes winning the Big 12, going to the playoff. I saw his playoff bracket. That was the only Big 12 team he had in the playoff. No,
that sucks.
No second team. He had the usual suspects in there. Ohio State, check. Oregon, check. Georgia, check. Notre Dame, check. Right on down the line. I think Penn State and Alabama have a pretty good shot this year, PK. It doesn't mean he's wrong. I can hate it, but it's like, well, it's probably not a terrible prediction. He's probably going to get a bunch of those right.
Yeah.
He did have Boise State in.
And then I'm wondering, in their own version of not the true blue blood, but is Boise just going to dominate that spot that's available to those teams?
With so many teams that have rotated through that spot as the postseason's gone through its various forms, and they don't have to compete with a lot of those teams because, now TCU's in the Big 12, Utah's in the Big 12. They, BYU never grabbed a spot, but there were projections about them sometimes, but they're in the Big 12. So a lot of these teams are across the line and into a power league. So there's arguably fewer to go after.
Because it seemed like Boise was slipping relative to where it was, but they've had a renaissance now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think they're in the toughest conference that they've been in or are going to be. Not right now, but next season.
Yeah. So you can look at the Utes and Brett McMurphy's prediction and say, okay, I see why he says that. But how many teams in the league can you say that for? If the next national college football writer, Andy Staples, whoever comes out and does a similar deal, which actually they probably all will here shortly, and if they say Texas Tech, you're not going to bat an eye. You're like, well, I get why they put Texas Tech up there. But how many teams in the league
could that's going to be my pick, yeah.
Yeah. How many teams in the league can you do that for before you look at one and go, whoa, that's a reach. I didn't see that coming. I wonder what they're thinking there.
Oh, well, you can. I think you got to put both schools here locally.
Even with
BYU right now,
even with an inexperienced quarterback at BYU. I was literally talking about this with a Cougar fan yesterday who was, and everybody will do whatever they want with their own expectations. He was scaling his back. He's like, he said, I was thinking 10 wins. Now I'm thinking 8.
Okay, but the Devils had just the same thing last year, and they freaking won.
And it could line up. It could happen.
So I only have to go back as far as the very last game.
You have the Devils on this list?
I think they should be on the list, yeah.
Got too many starters back, not to.
Correct.
Even though they're missing a really good one, obviously.
And my gosh, I would hammer that in Levitt's ear 50 times a day, because he's got to be able to hear that. So many folks are doubting him and say he was a product of Scarabuya, and obviously that kid was off the charts great. And you had the best description ever of what you see when you watch him play. Speaking of Scarabuya, you said you just laugh.
I do.
And I thought, wow, that was a great description. We all know what that means. That's the ultimate entertainer right there, because that's what you want.
Yep.
And he certainly had it, and he's gone. So it's a big loss. To me, that loss you could argue is parallel to Retzlaff being gone. How's it going to be? But you got these other guys now, man. And we always hear next man up, blah, 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 blah. So let's go and let's see what you got. So you can go down the list probably, and maybe not as extreme as the quarterback and the running back for BYU and ASU. I get that. But other teams have got losses too. So I would also throw Iowa State in there.
Iowa State, I was going to say.
Has to be. I think you have to throw Kansas State in there.
What about Kansas?
And I would have no problem putting Kansas in there. And I realize they didn't have a good season last year. Yeah. And then Baylor, don't you have to consider them?
So now that's 8 teams. That's half the league we've now named.
I know. I got it.
I think given the way Baylor ended the season, we should have brought their name up earlier.
Well, I wasn't bringing it up in any order.
In any order, right. But let's just make clear, I don't think they're like the 8th best favorite in this league.
Okay, that's fine.
I wouldn't be shocked if after last year, I don't know if I could be shocked by any of the 16. At some point you just throw up your hands like, okay, there's a transfer portal. It's a huge league. It's craziness. There isn't an Ohio State at the top of the league, so anything can happen. But I would say that I would be a little more – if Baylor – I think BYU winning it would be more surprising than Baylor winning it. I think Kansas winning would be more surprising than Baylor. Baylor really finished strong. You look at they got that quarterback situation ironed out. September was a mess. But they get to October, November, they were really good. And they were really – so if they can keep it rolling.
That's their own fault, and they overlooked Robertson 2 years in a row.
Right. But then it's our fault if we overlook them now. And having said that, just because you did something last October and November, it doesn't mean you're going to repeat it now. No, it doesn't.
There's no guarantees
None.
on anything. So
right.
That's why I'm looking forward to the season, because there's a whole level of possibilities that are there, and then there's going to be a couple of possibilities that we aren't considering possible right now.
Nobody's mentioned TCU yet. Would that shock you?
Shock me? No.
Mildly surprise you?
No, it would not shock me. I would say in the category of possibility, that would be shockers, but I think they at least need to deserve a look, is Arizona and Colorado.
So mildly shocking. Surprising. Not shocking, but it would be surprising.
Yeah, because if this
together.
Lewis kid is what they say he is, and especially as we get into November, if he's got enough playing time over there in the Boulder, look out. And Fafita's a dangerous man. And maybe it's a little bit of BYU basketball with the Cats being, man, so much was new last year that it just took a while. And with basketball, you play enough games that you can develop it during the season. Football, you don't play that many games, and then because you don't, and you started 1-4 or whatever it was, I'm just throwing stuff out there, you end up beaten. And now with the staff coming back for next year and all that, this year and all that, maybe they put it together. I wouldn't pick them by any stretch, but I think they'll be a dangerous team on any given week. And if you get them that particular week, they can beat you. I really believe that's possible, and I think we'll see that. There'll be a few surprises with the Cats. Like, wow, that was an impressive win. They may not have the accumulation, but I think they'll have some individual ones.
So if West Virginia does it, we'd be surprised because Rich Rod will have a good offense, but we did our spring football tour, and the defense might face a couple challenges. So if they pull it off, that would be shocking.
Well, the thing that I go with this, and I do this historically, when you have a coaching change, was it because the guy got a better job and left, or maybe retired, or was he fired?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's two different situations there that can determine. And I think more often than not, if a coach is replaced because they were dissatisfied, you have to allow the new coach some time.
Hence the difference between Deion's first year and Deion's second year.
Yeah, to me, that's just a general rule that I have, particularly, most especially, at this time of year.
So apply it to UCF as well, then. Scott Frost is there, and they lost 8 of their last 9 games and were a mess. They beat Arizona. But other than that, they were a mess.
Right. And, it doesn't always play out. Like for the other side of it, it didn't play out with the Cats last year. Jed Fish was promoted in a sense, and we expected more out of Arizona, and they were a big disappointment.
All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. PK, it's the Utah Jazz. Anything is possible. Do you think this is possible? And if so, how will people react?
Oh my gosh, if it's possible, build a statue.
We'll get to this next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Well, it's rumor speculation season. Few teams. Few businesses do drama and rumors and speculation as well as basketball. And I guess we can trace the roots back in, 75 years ago in baseball, they called it the Hot Stove League, and all the off-season rumors about trades flew around. So we got a bunch of stuff out there about the NBA now, PK. And the one that involves the Utah Jazz that caught your ear, he soon could be, I guess he's already the longest tenured Jazzman, right? Because his trade got done before Markkanen's trade by a few weeks. But Walker Kessler, and what might be out there as far as interest around the league and interest with the Jazz?
I think Kessler's one of these players that on his own, he's not a superstar, or at least not yet. Maybe he can develop. That'd be awesome if he did. But you put him in a team that has a specific need for his skill set, and he could really, really help a team. There's no question about it, because his skill set is something that teams need. They need a shot blocker. They need a rim protector. They need a rebounder. Every team needs it, right? And that player doesn't need to be necessarily a superstar, but like Jakob Poeltl, I think, can do a lot of different things. On his own, he's probably not the first-team All-NBA or any of that stuff, but put him on like I said yesterday, put him on the Warriors, and wow, I think he would make that team a lot better. And so I don't want to see it sound like Liam Neeson in Taken, but Walker Kessler has a certain set of skills. And if he gets to use them, he will kill you.
So I think that's where it needs to start. You take the personality out briefly. I think this is a question for any of the 30 teams, obviously more so for the Jazz because he's on the Jazz roster right now. But any of the 29 teams that might be thinking about acquiring him, how do you view the defensive-minded pick-and-roll center? I mean, we just saw one of them with Rudy, right? What neither one of these guys did, and what Derek Favors didn't do either, was shoot threes. And it does seem like there are coaches/GMs that are really dedicated to, I'm going to have 5 3-point shooters on the floor, and 1 or 2 of them need to be rim protectors. And this is where positionless basketball gets a lot more real, right? They may not be traditional. Giannis is not a traditional center, but he's a rim protector. So the Bucks have wanted 5 3-point shooters out there. And so they had Lopez. Now, obviously, he's moved on to the Clippers here, and they, went over and took the Pacers apart. But that's not Kessler. And to me, it doesn't look like it's going to be Kessler. I mean, I know he's talked about it, and I know guys older than him have added that, so maybe that'll happen. And, man, if they give up on him and it does happen, then it'll look very good. So they got to be able to figure that out. And they got more info on that than we do. That seems to be a bit – how do they want to play? How does Austin want them to play? Does he like a defensive guy and 4 shooters, or is he someone who demands 5 shooters? Because that philosophical question seems to me like that's the basis of what you decide.
Okay, but if I'm good enough offensively with the other guys, he can help me in an area – that he has expertise in.
Oh, yeah, and there are coaches who believe that, and we saw that with Quinn Snyder and Rudy. I mean, Quinn thought he could do it. I don't think that was spin in public. He loved Rudy. He loved what Rudy did at the defensive end, and he thought the other 4 players, and Rudy was really good in the pick-and-roll game, so it's, but he didn't need Rudy to be a three-point shooter to have a really good offense in his mind. Now, they never got to the conference final, but you can argue, hey, the Jazz didn't get to the conference final with Stockton Malone right away either. That took a good long while.
Yeah, but the rumor out there that I saw is 2 firsts and a player for Kessler. If AA got 2 firsts and a player, and that player is not some,
I was going to say who are the player and where are the picks?
Well, 2 firsts.
Well, yeah, but if they're pick 20 and 25, I'm not that impressed. If they end up being lottery, if they end up being lottery picks, I'm very impressed.
Right, but
there's
how about
a wide range.
Yeah, but the Minnesota pick wasn't, or was it Cleveland? I think they just used the Minnesota pick, and it wasn't lottery, but they moved up 3 spots and got a player that they really wanted. So that gives you just because you get that doesn't mean that's exclusively what you get. Then you spin that and you move up. You got 2 picks now. Yep. Now you got 8-9 picks. So in the next X amount of years, we're already seeing that with Oklahoma City. That's one of their big selling points. Well, sure, they're going to have to pay guys, but they've also got these picks, so they can reload that way. And I don't think you scoff at first-round picks. And I get a 5th place spot is better than on 20, at least on paper anyway. But we already saw what they did. They moved up, 3 spots this year to get someone else. We'll see what Clayton ends up being. Hopefully he's a great player and fills a real big-time need. But if they're excited, at least they were excited about getting him. You don't trade up for somebody that you're not excited for. At the same time, I think they traded up for Trey Burke, and that didn't work. So who's to say, right? We'll find out in the next 3-4 years. That's the fun of it all, is that these guys do, without question, know more than all of us. Whatever I know, Austin Ainge knows 1,000 times more. I have no doubt in saying that. But even when you say that, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the right pick.
No. It wasn't that long ago that they were holding out for a first for Jordan Clarkson. They thought they could get it. It turned out they couldn't. So just because they think it doesn't mean it's right. Just because they pick a guy doesn't mean he's right. But I get your point that on the surface, getting 2 first-round picks, and a player, that could be pretty intriguing. Tell me who the player is, obviously.
Yeah.
But assuming that it's a starting – I would think they'd be looking for someone who they think within a year is a starting quality player under the age of 25. Now, is it better than that? I probably don't want a guy older than that.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, if they were to move Kessler, is he's the one guy on the roster, or the only guy on the roster, who gives you what he can give you. And you look at the rest of the roster, right? Right now, they've got options. You want wing players, tall wing players who are athletic? I can give you Bailey. I can give you Hendricks. I can give you Williams. Now, I don't know if those guys are going to pan out, but I've got options there to see. And just by dumb luck,
one or two of those guys are going to pan out. They have to, right? And it's the same thing at the guard line. They've got 3-4 guys. Well, if you get rid of Kessler, you have nobody at center who can give you what you're looking at. Nurkic is older, so I don't think he's going to be there in 3 to 4 years.
He's going to be there in 2.
Right.
We'll see if he makes it through this one.
Right. So that's the one thing that would concern me about moving Kessler is then you got to go out and get somebody like him, and you already have him. Whereas if you traded Keontae George, well, I got 2-3 other guys that I can give opportunities to, so at least I have the possibility of filling those needs. You create a void if you get rid of Kessler that you don't have right now. But if the offer is so overwhelming, well, then you got to take it.
Well, it goes back. We were talking about this with David Locke, probably a couple months ago, and I remember him saying, "Well, if you move Kessler, you have to go find another Kessler because you got to have somebody like that, and you don't." I mean, Filipowski is a big guy, but he just doesn't move like that. He's not that long. He's just, that's just not happening. Not
right,
to
we
that
understand
degree.
that.
No way.
Right.
So they got to go find somebody else. So that does seem like a setback. Now, conversely, they're so far away that if you have one piece you can move and you can get 2 or 3 pieces, because otherwise it's sitting here adding one guy at a time, and how long is it going to take?
Yeah, but they haven't been adding. I mean, they've been adding 3 at a time.
If they hit on all 3, you're right.
Well, they're not, but just dumb luck. They should hit on some of them.
And there's other ways to add guys. You can find your, Royce O'Neal undrafted, your Joe Ingles undrafted. Not everybody has to come in through the draft. There are people playing basketball all over the world who can contribute in the NBA. So there's other places. But there aren't a lot of places to find a 7-footer who's as long and athletic and moves as well as Kessler does.
Right.
And that catches everybody's eye. And I know somebody who talked to Steve Kerr when they were here the first time, and he saw him in person for the first time. Obviously, he knew about him, but he's like, well, he's going to be good. Those guys just know.
Yeah.
But I do think philosophically, man, if you really want 5 3-point shooters, and if that's what you've got to do to be an elite team and to be a championship contender and to win a champion, and you really believe in that, then you probably should be looking for that kind of trade for Walker, because I don't think he's going to turn into that.
What team has 5 3-point shooters?
I think Milwaukee did when they won it.
Right.
I mean, so if you're trying to build that team, you're not going to build him.
You don't need that.
And if you come to that conclusion, then my desire to trade him goes way down. If that's
Indiana
what Austin is
didn't have
thinking.
it. OKC doesn't have it.
Well, you may think you have it and you don't have it. Now we get into the weeds a little more.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, you think you've got a 3-point shooter, and then you get to the finals and he shoots 25% from 3. So you didn't have him when you need him. I mean, Turner really struggled.
He's not a 3-point shooter. I don't think so.
He shot 39% from 3. And he was taking 5 a game this year. 5.5, actually. So I think they think they have him.
He didn't do it when it mattered.
Exactly. And that's what I was just saying. You think you've got him, but then you're in the finals and they just aren't going in.
And then they didn't want to pay him the money, so he left.
Yep.
They told us that they didn't value him. Yep. I don't need to tell you him. I don't need to say it. They told us.
Well, would they have valued him if they weren't going into the luxury tax, or are they just another one of these teams? And I think that's really hampering the rebuild here. I think it's hampered their play in the last 3 years, is that owners are drawing absolute lines about, depending on the club, about luxury tax, first apron, and certainly the second apron. Like, I'm not writing that check. And so,
guys, going to run out of money here?
Guys,
you need to get a GoFundMe?
No, I don't. I don't think any of these owners are going to run out of money, but nonetheless, they don't want to spend it.
I don't know. I don't know who the owners of the Pacers are, so I have no idea. All I know is this one. That's all I care about. I couldn't tell you that the owner of the Pacers could walk in the room right now, and I'd have no clue. I don't even know the person's name. No idea. And I don't want to know. I'm worried about the Jazz, not the Pacers. So that's where I make my money, is talking about the Jazz. I don't think
the rebuild has been hampered by the Jazz's unwillingness to spend money.
No, I think it's been hampered by other teams' unwillingness to take on the salaries of Jazz players. I don't think the thing that's limited trading John Collins is his talent. I think the thing that's limited trading him is his salary and how it fits into other people's budgets.
Yeah, but that's every team in the league.
And that's true. And I think that's why he's still here, and I think that's why Clarkson was here certainly 2 years longer than he needed to be. You'd probably argue 3.
Yeah, and that's why they got rid of Mitchell and Gobert. I mean, that's part of the deal. That's never going to end. I mean, of course that's the case. They were paying him too much money, and they didn't have the flexibility, and they didn't think they were good enough. I get it. So that's why we're in this situation that we're in. If they were making $10 million a year, it'd be another story.
Well, they're about to decide whether they have to pay Kessler. So if you're going to move him,
well, they're not deciding this summer. They're not going to re-sign him. They're going to let him go and be a restricted free agent, and then they're, as you would say, kicking it down the road. So they've already made that decision. I can tell you that.
We're moving into Gordon Hayward territory, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same plan.
Yeah. And then Gordon got his feelings hurt because he thought he was a big-time player, and big-time players aren't treated like that. The only problem was you weren't a big-time player. I mean, you're a very good player. I'm not denigrating his talent by any stretch, but he thought he was all-world because he put Butler on his back and got to the Final Four. And, yeah, okay, you're really good. Hayward was really good, but he wasn't that type of player. So the Jazz, I thought they treated him fine. He got his money, but he got offended. And then when it was time to leave, he left. And he went chasing the biggest stars because he thought he was among the biggest stars. He wasn't. And I think Kessler will have a little more common sense in this situation.
I would think you're right. I don't think Kessler. Yeah, I think he's probably wired a little different. Definitely think he views himself differently.
Yeah, so he'll get his money. Kessler just needs to put his head down. He knows this. Put his head down and go to work, man, and do what you need to do, and you'll get that offer. Well, that'll come.
Yeah. Just keep doing what got him from where he was his first year to where he is now.
Yeah.
Just keep that arc.
Although the arc, yeah, exactly, because expectations go up.
Yep.
You don't plateau at this age. Something's wrong if he does develop a 3 to any level,
then moving him that gets a lot harder for me to swallow. Not that they care what I think or they care how I feel about the move, but I'd be like, well, what are you moving him for? At that point he becomes. I mean, what more do you want from him at that point?
Unless it's just a killer deal.
Yeah, again, back to who the team is, what the picks are. You know, some teams' unprotected picks are awfully tempting, especially if they're in the next draft. So you hear 2 firsts, and they're not all created equal.
They only have one unavailable, non-tradable under any circumstance player, and that's A.J. DeMonsa.
They don't have him, PK.
Oh, you just wait. You just wait.
Yeah, now you're talking. That's what you did with Cooper Flagg. How'd that work out?
That was a long shot. That was a long shot, man. It was a 1 in 87 chance. They drafted where they're supposed to. This is going forward. You don't know where it's going to be. And a kid, if Ace Bailey can finagle where he doesn't want to go, you don't think A.J. DeMonsa? This kid already loves Utah. My goodness gracious. He's the Grand Marshal at the parade tomorrow, isn't he? Or is that later on in the month? I forget.
All right. PK the Hype Machine. It is a holiday weekend, PK. I do believe you put a question up on Facebook about that, and we should get to that next. There are celebrations to be planned. There are things to be done. There's fun to be had. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present?
This is JJ and Alex.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invent a food line that you just invent by putting stuff in your pocket, and that's how it gets heated up. No need to
We don't need appliances.
Yeah, put it under. But have you ever seen those like Indian street food Instagram videos? I go down that rabbit hole sometimes.
What does the algorithm say about us?
I know there's some weird stuff that pops up. Mine is all sports and food stuff.
That'd be accurate. If I had to guess, that would probably be accurate.
And I do the thing too where I'm like, I like that recipe. I'm going to send it to myself. And then I see myself in the mirror as I walk by something in a building. I go, who are you? What are you? What's your problem? That's me. I've started to do that. I send myself Instagram recipes that I can try out on the weekend. I've become like a segment on Studio 5, breaking it out. And I saw this on Instagram. I wanted you to try it. My goodness.
You start your own cooking show.
Oh, I like to cook. I'm one of those guys.
Can you do a cooking show on the radio?
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is John Philip Sousa.
That it is.
This just screams the 4th of July, doesn't it? And here we sit on the 3rd of July. One of our questions up on our Facebook page, where's the 4th of July rank in your holiday list? PK biasing the survey. Hint, put it pretty high up there.
You have to.
What is the lowest it could go? In my mind, the lowest it can go on a holiday list is 3rd.
3rd.
You want to go Christmas and Thanksgiving, I get it. Some people might want to go New Year's. I say no. 4th
don't
is a
consider
big
New Year's
push.
a holiday.
Well, it literally is. I consider holidays paid days off. I get that discussion. People are like, well, it's Arbor Day. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't get a day off for Arbor Day, so it's not a holiday. Halloween is a holiday.
It's what's in
it's not.
best interest of your pocket.
No, it's
pretty
actually
much boils down to that.
No, because I'm getting paid whether I work or not. The pay's the same. That's the whole point. Not having to work, having my time back in the interest of my time.
If I give you the time and don't give you the money, you don't want it.
What? I didn't follow
that. If I
that.
give you the time off, I'll give you Arbor Day, but I ain't paying you. So if you don't show up for work, I'm docking you.
I see where you're going. I got it. I was slow. No, I wouldn't have a fit. Actually, there was a time, and I don't think they're doing this anymore. There was a time where we were told to TV we could buy another week of vacation, and I did, and I had a coworker shocked by that. And I'm like, kids are growing and gone, man. I need the time.
That's because you make so much money, it's no big deal. The rest of us, me and Yonk, have to work overtime, and you can buy a week, and it's like you save somebody $600,000.
Half of what you just said is true. About
and the other
why
half was spot on.
No, the other half was total. No, stop with your drops. You played it yesterday. You played it pretty much every day this week. No, the other part's BS. You're not working overtime to make the ends meet. That's total BS.
I'm working overtime.
No, now you just want to sing because you think this is a karaoke show. It's like, see, we all know about you at 9 o'clock in the show, and we especially know about you on Fridays because this is a holiday weekend. By 8:30 on Thursday, you're in Friday 9 o'clock mood, and I'm fabulous. Just ask me. That was a good one. I like that one.
Are you fabulous?
Well, not really, but that's what made that more fun.
Well, you told me to ask you, and I just asked you.
That was the whole sarcasm of the whole thing that made it. That made the payoff enjoyable. So, where do you rank it? I probably would rank it 3rd. Third out of 10. 3 out of 10.
The best holiday that's not based on religion or food.
For a lot of people, it is based on food, and I get your point. Not everyone, for everyone, but man, for a lot of people,
right? But that doesn't count.
Is critical.
That doesn't count.
Why doesn't it get counts to them?
Because it
doesn't count to you.
Because it's the same thing as Memorial Day and Labor Day. The same type of food is had, so it's not specific to July 4th. Whereas clearly, turkey is appropriated for one day of the year. If you don't have turkey that day,
what are you doing?
Something's wrong.
Yeah, what are you doing there?
And so the religious aspect of Christmas speaks for itself.
How do you feel about the Christmas turkey, or you're okay with the Christmas ham?
Well, that's a preference, man. I'm not going to tell people
Some
what to
people.
eat.
I grew up with it had to be the Christmas turkey. We do. It was the Christmas meal and the Thanksgiving meal were nearly identical.
No, I grew up with macaroni, ravioli, meatballs, lasagna. And it was home cooked. I don't know if you realize this, but I grew up with a heavy Italian influence.
Why haven't you ever mentioned this?
Despite the Irish name, it's no wonder I'm all messed up. Think about this. Yeah.
What is this new information?
So, come on.
Did you have a cannoli?
Yeah, for sure. I actually had available, if you wanted it, Italian food on Thanksgiving. It was always there. At no point was there never not a pot with meatballs simmering. Literally every day of the year. Certainly on those holidays. But I can't assign, and I get that food is part of the holiday and it's part of the gathering, but fireworks, if I say fireworks, we automatically go to July 4th throughout the entire country. So that's why it has you. If I say hamburgers and hot dogs, I could very well say Memorial Day, Labor Day, and be fine. But if I say fireworks, we go right to the one holiday. So outside of a specific food and religion, July 4th is number one. And if you don't put it at number one, you get out.
Way to craft an argument. That was beautiful, PK.
Well, it's the only way to craft it. It's the most obvious way to craft it.
Got to have your fireworks. A good fireworks show, preferably at a game. And I've seen fireworks shows multiple places over the years, obviously. But
what about at Monster Jam?
I haven't done that.
That's what I'm doing tomorrow night.
Oh, really?
Well, an activity.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a game, but it's some form of activity.
The game was the best.
Going to be at a sporting venue. It'll be a Recycle Stadium.
The local tradition, I can't speak to other places, but the local tradition letting people go down on the field, which they've done at the Bees and at Real Salt Lake, and it's just obvious watching it happen. There's a gazillion kids who are like, this is awesome. I'm down on the field. Here come the fireworks. The buzz in the crowd is awesome. None of the other stuff's good, and I've seen them. I saw when I was growing up. I saw them at the county fair. We'd be at the racetrack and see them. Cool fireworks shows there.
You don't need to go to a game, though.
No, you don't have to.
If you want to, that's fine.
That's chef's kiss. That's top drawer. But when I was a really little kid, we used to watch them from a car parked on a hillside, and they shot them off at a shopping plaza down near us.
That's good enough.
Yeah. That was a pretty good show.
I also think what also is cool, something you haven't mentioned, is over water.
I haven't grown up with that, but I've seen it, and it is cool. That absolutely is cool. The stuff I've seen it. I've seen video from. I think the video on the mall at DC looks cool, although I've never done it. But my wife grew up back there, and that was their tradition. Was you went down to the mall and. Apparently, everybody drove there, and it was just a total mess. I mean, a lot of us have been there as tourists. It's a total mess. There's a gazillion people. Go down to the mall and watch them. But Boston and New York do them over water. Those look awesome. I've seen Sydney. They do them over water. That looks awesome.
Sydney does it on July 4th over water?
No, they do theirs on New Year's Day because obviously
Sydney, Australia.
They don't have the 4th of July, but I've seen the fireworks over water, and it's cool.
But that doesn't. I don't care what they do in Australia.
Growing up in San Diego, you'd think I would have seen it, but I don't even know if they have one down at the Bay. Maybe they do, but we never did that.
Didn't they have the famous one where they all went off at one time down there in San Diego about 10 years ago? They had a malfunction.
There was a malfunction. I don't remember where it was, but I do remember the malfunction.
Right there on the water.
Mm.
The only malfunctions I want are wardrobes.
Thank you, Janet. Janet and Justin, right? There they go.
And I believe it was an accident.
Hey, you're the one. I suppose somebody has to believe that. Might as well be you.
And I immediately closed my eyes. so I never saw it.
DJ, you're right. It is 9 o'clock on a Thursday.
It is.
July 4th needs to be way more respected than it needs to be put on a much higher level.
Where'd you go for fireworks when you were a kid after you were done with the pasta on New Year's and rolled around to the 4th of July? Where you probably had pasta again.
I created my own.
Oh, you did? At the neighborhood fireworks?
No, I don't like neighborhood fireworks. Go to
I'm on a show.
A local park. I'm not a big do it on the sidewalk stuff.
No.
This isn't really. And I didn't understand that until I got to Utah. People are big on that.
Big on that here. Yeah.
Of course, then I promptly did it. My parents came up and we did. My parents and my sister came up a few times, and we went to Sugar House Park.
Yeah, that was a big show for a long time. That was a big deal when that stopped.
Snakes and sparklers, but where's good stuff, man? Good stuff. This is the good stuff. Snakes and sparklers.
Are you nuts, dude? You need stuff to explode. Go boom. So you're going to tell me that you don't have no black cats, no Roman candles, or screaming mimes?
No.
Oh, come on, man. You don't got no lady fingers, fuzz buttles, snicker bombs, church burners, finger blasters, gut busters, zippity doodads, or crap flappers?
No, I don't.
You're going to stand there owning a fireworks stand and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes, no spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, Husker do's, Husker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser?
No, because snakes and sparklers are the only ones I like.
Nice.
Don't you think when they're writing bits like that, they're just cracking themselves up?
Absolutely.
They're sitting around a writer's table
Yeah, Joe Dirt's a legendary.
And there's a million of them that they probably put out that they're like, we can't put that in, but it's hilarious.
When I was a kid, there was a kid, I went to the same school all 8 years, and there was a kid in a grade ahead of me, and he had lost some of his fingertips, and the word was that he did personal fireworks. So they scared us all for 8 years, and it stuck
worked.
with me.
It worked, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, and because,
Jason Pierre-Paul will show you exactly what not to do.
There's that. That's a high-profile example right there. But the truth is, if you work in a newspaper or in a newsroom in radio or TV, man, you hear these stories every year. So they really do stick with you.
Yeah, and his name was Oliverio Mendia. I remember it.
No, the name stuck with you.
Well, everybody went. There were 2 classes per grade.
So everybody knew, right, in small community.
And everybody went the whole 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, you had a few people move in, but no. And I went to the same grade school with the same kids for 8 years, and for 7 of those years, we were all together in the dumb class.
But you're smart enough not to do that.
And I was smart enough to know that I was in the dumb class, so I figured for the rest of my life, just give them the minimum because that's all they're expecting, so why surprise them?
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Where does the 4th of July rank on your holiday? Hit us up on Twitter, David DJ James. Facebook, DJ and PK. We'll get to more of your responses coming up. More on the Utah Jazz and a potential trade and more college football. Ought to excite you Ute fans, unless you believe in jinxes, I suppose. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I told you we went to this country writers thing in Nashville where you saw these different people that write hits. But mixed in the middle was this old timer. He sang a song about his dog dying. I'm not kidding. Like there were people going, play a happy song, like yelling at this guy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Guy played like 3 songs and everybody was like, oh, I'm so depressed. Yeah. You know what? Read the room.
Yeah, right.
By the way, and he said before he sang the dog dying song, he's like, nobody's picked this one up. I can't figure it out. I can. The song was called For Pete's Sake, and the dog was named Pete.
It's a little on the nose.
I'm just coming to this theater to rock out on some country I barely like, and they gotta sing about a dog dying.
Dying dog, for Pete's sake.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad, dude.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
We were just talking 4th of July and fireworks, and Real Salt Lake's going to have their fireworks show on the 5th of July. They've got St. Louis coming in for a game Saturday night. We got a 4-pack of tickets. 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. 4 tickets to go watch RSL. And St. Louis Saturday night at America First Field. Call right now. 801-575-ZONE. Where's July 4th rank on your holiday list? Hint, put it up there pretty high. Tommy, correcting you, PK. Man, you can't even ease into a holiday weekend without someone telling you wrong. I think it's Independence Day, not the July 4th holiday. And I rank it number 1, Tommy says.
Same thing. Tomato, tomato. Get out of my face.
Bruce, I rank New Year's Day number 1. It's the best because of college football. All Bruce wants is a holiday and the Rose Bowl.
See, that's why it's not, in my mind, a holiday, because it's associated with college football. No other holiday is associated with something that isn't related to the holiday. So that's why I can't put it as a holiday. You see what I'm saying?
Nope, I really don't. I think
because when New Year's Day falls on a Sunday, it's not college football.
Ah, so that 1
so
in
the
7
holiday in
chance
your mind is
rotates you
college
around.
football. It's college football, not New Year's Day.
Well, speaking for Bruce, sorry, Bruce, if I'm not speaking well for you, he would just say, now it turned into 48 hours and they play it on the 2nd.
But what does he do on the 1st?
Probably watches the NFL.
Right.
Because it's
right.
on Sunday.
Exactly.
That'd be my guess.
Right. So it's not college football.
But it's still
Thank
football.
you for making my case, as you would say.
Thank you, Bruce. Dyson, I rank it numero 1. So he moves in front of Thanksgiving and Christmas. Puts it in the top spot.
I'm okay with that.
Brian, holiday, laughing, crying emoji. I work all weekend. It's just another day to me.
Oh, great. You and him, the 2 hardest working guys in the world.
I would disagree with him because even if you are working, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, but even when you're working on a holiday, there isn't as much management around. It has a different vibe. Isn't that true in most businesses? I guess maybe if you have a job where you don't work
money
around.
often.
Yeah. If you're hourly, you're right. You're getting the old time and a half or double time. Yeah.
Yeah.
More cash.
Right. You want to hear something stupid?
It's about 40% of this show, but sure, why not? Let's go.
I know, but I've been working on you. I'm trying to cut it down to 20.
Yeah,
I hope next year I can do it. That's my goal for 26.
It's worked all these years. Go ahead.
My father-in-law always worked on holidays because of the extra money, right?
Okay.
And he worked for American Airlines. He was a reservations supervisor. And so he always worked, and he worked the swing shift. And so he lived over in California. That's where that's how I ended up getting that job, because we went over to visit him before we were going to get married. And I called that one day. I called the newspaper. Hey, can I speak to the editor? Yeah. You got any openings? Yeah. They interviewed me that day. It was so bizarre, you know what I mean? And then I ended up, blah, 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 took the job. Well, so we move over in that community where he was living. And unfortunately, he died at 59. So we had about 5 years where we lived over there, and he was alive and fine. And this was his second marriage, not my mother-in-law. And he married a local, so her family was in the area. And she worked even better at work, blah, blah, blah. And so the two of them worked on every holiday. So what really stunk, and I went along with it because I was a good soldier, for 5 years, we would have Thanksgiving at 11 in the morning, and I hated it.
11?
Absolutely, yes, because we'd have it before. He wanted to have it with his daughter before he went to work.
Yeah. Okay, so I get that part. So I grew up with, it was Thanksgiving dinner. And we had extended family in San Diego that would show up, right? And it tended to be people are showing up at 4 or 5 and you're eating about 6. But as I got older and moved here, we started doing it, and for the same reasons, going to work. 11 is just too early. I couldn't do 11. But I found like the big meal at 2 or 3, I like that better.
100%.
I can do the 2 or 3 o'clock start. Yeah. And it's not what I grew up with, but I really transition. I like it. But 11 a.m., that seems a bit early.
Yeah.
I'm still.
But I went along.
I mean, brunch at 11. Well, you're a team player, PK.
Yeah, and we're basically I literally moved over there my first year of marriage from Arizona, and my wife came several months later.
So it's time to establish new traditions and all that, but that was a tough one.
I know. I went along with it, and it sucked. I hated it. But I was just and then he dies at 59, and he marries somebody young who's still living. So I still haven't gotten a dime of inheritance. Talk about ticking me off.
That's right.
Story. Yeah.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Jusuf Nurkic has a press conference coming up. We're going to let you hear a little bit of that, and there's a trade rumor around the Jazz we'll get to. Stay with us, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We got some media availability coming up during our show. Jusuf Nurkic, new Jazz man. I believe briefly a new Jazz man, but we'll see how it works out. He's going to meet with the media. We'll let you listen to a little bit of that here. We're also working on something for you hockey fans. What's going on with JJ Peterka? They moved they've had it scheduled a couple times, and whenever he does his media availability, he's going to talk to us afterwards. Is the way it's been planned.
Postponed again. That's all I know.
Postponed Monday, postponed Thursday. As long as it doesn't have to do with him signing a long-term contract. Is there anything to do with that, or you don't know? As long as those two things are.
Only thing I got this morning is it's postponed.
Okay. All right. We can deal with the one thing, but the other one, let's get her done. That's the kind of move that really makes sense. I mean, his age fits in there. He's a little older than Cooley and Gunther and a little younger than Clayton Keller. It's the kind of trade you want to see the Jazz make if they're going to be moving Markkanen and Collins here. Can they get somebody whose age fits the timeline a little better, the way Peterka does? Get that all lined up, PK. Get it all lined up.
And I'm trying to think who.
And get him on our show. He says selfishly.
Yeah, who could
you're trying to think in the NBA who they might want?
Yeah.
I would be okay in it. You might lose the press conference kind of thing, but I don't really care about that. I wouldn't care if I didn't realize who it was and wasn't convinced of said player's awesomeness the moment the deal was made. I mean, there's some names we can all run down, high draft picks, stars, young stars, all-stars, and say, oh, it'd be great. If it's Cooper Flagg, we would all say, oh, it's great. But it doesn't have to be somebody. It could be somebody on the way up that people, you're buying low and getting a deal because you see it coming and other people don't.
Yeah, but like who?
I don't know who that is, but I didn't know it was SGA when it was SGA. I'm like everybody else. None of us reacted when that Paul George trade was made. We're all talking about Paul George, and we should have been talking about SGA. But Oklahoma City, to some degree, saw it coming, and maybe to a certain degree they got fortunate.
I told you years ago, always draft a Calipari guy. He knows NBA talent.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines, draft Patino guys for similar reasons, right?
Right, but he hasn't had enough time there at St. John's. He's been out of college the game. Yeah.
But drafting an Iona guy, he still has some. Patino sees something, and he coaches you hard, and you can deal with the discipline, and there's a little something to, when Rick Pitino, and granted, he doesn't have to, it's not like when he was at Kentucky, right, where he had the pick of all the elite players. It's a little different deal at Iona, but I still think it means something.
Possibly. I don't.
It's not the same thing. I know what you're getting at.
Because of the Florida experience, not the Iona experience.
Well, the combination of the two. You played for Rick and you passed the test, and there's something to that. But you're right about doing it at the highest level. Which you can get with your Floridas or Kentucky, and soon your Arkansas, presumably.
A little concern is that he didn't go with him to St. John's, and it's in the same city.
but I don't know anything about the backstory there to act like, oh, that's a red flag. So I can't say that whatsoever. Right. And now it doesn't matter.
He's
anyway
here,
because
we'll
they've drafted
just see.
him. Yeah, and so that's all out the window. Now, all I remember him, my memories of him are as most recent as could possibly be, when he's just hitting huge shots in the most pressurized moment in literally the most pressurized game of the season.
And of his life.
Can't escape that.
Yeah, and of his life to date.
Yes, and so that is really cool. And I don't necessarily care that he played it for Patino. I like the fact that he believed he was under-recruited, and then he set the stage and then moved up. We've seen guys do that of late. That's been more a story, I think, in basketball than it has been in football. It's been a story in football, too. But
Cam Ward.
Football,
the number one pick in the draft.
And Scattaboo.
Yeah, there's another good example.
But football, you just need so many guys. Where in basketball, one or two dudes can make a significant difference.
Yeah.
I like the kid's moxie to think, I'm going to take the shot because I'm going to make it, and we're going to win the NCAA title because I'm not losing this game. And that just speaks volumes. You can't get necessarily caught up in that because I can give you two examples of guys who had great NCAAs and didn't do much in the NBA. But this kid here, it's like the way he conducts himself, and then somebody asks him about some nickname, and he, whoa, slow the flow here, man. I haven't done anything yet. So far, you talk about losing the press conference, Walt Clayton Jr. has won it in my mind. I love what he said in his attitude and his body language about, I'm a winner, and this is what I do.
Yeah, he had a good first press conference. You know, when they hit him with the old, what do you think of Walt Lake City? He's like, I got to do something first. Slow that down.
Yeah, right. And he's going to get every opportunity, I believe. I don't know. It's not going to be handed to him. I'm not saying that. But I think over the course of this very season, he's going to have a lot of opportunity to show us what he could do. And because, at least for me, and I'll get your opinion on it in a second when I stop talking, because he's a couple years older, I have a little more expectation than an 18, 19-year-old.
100%. Absolutely, totally agree with that. And there still will be a transition. You know, he's still a rookie in the NBA, and that counts for something. But there's still, at 22, you've had reps you just can't have at 19. And obviously you're more mentally and emotionally developed, right, at 22. And they got a 24-year-old rookie now. He's a second-round draft pick, so maybe there's a talent issue there. But I would think the age partly scared people off too. So maybe they have something there. We'll see. But, yes, absolutely, 20, 22, 24, I'm expecting you to make physical and emotional development and all that stuff. And certainly the reps matter.
Yes, if for no other reason than, according to Chris Peterson, you're aging out of the dumbest demographic in the country.
I think Chris Peterson's right about that. A, I lived through it. B, my brothers lived through it. C, a bunch of friends in college lived through it. D, we've seen a gazillion stories in college sports covering it all these years. Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence that says Chris is onto something there.
Yes, and he's aging out of it. And so I have a higher level.
More.
And so far, and he hadn't played a game or bounced a ball yet that we've been able to see. I realize they've had a couple of practices. But so far, I can see what the Jazz were thinking in moving up to get him. And especially when Austin Ainge says, wow, knowing where we were drafting, our two choices would have been Ace Bailey and Walt Clayton, and then they got him. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean anything until the games start and we all get to see.
But it raises my expectations. Don't go out and say that for no reason.
Right.
Just to hype up a press conference? That's short term. You don't get much for that.
And, I've been around Austin enough to know he's not really a hype guy. He's not really trying to say stuff for the sake of grabbing headlines. Mm-hmm. He's going to speak what he believes as much as he can't say everything. We understand that. But I like what he says in terms of this is what I think. And I think it's real. He's not trying to sell us a bill of goods to buy that we think, oh, yeah, hype it up. I think he's just sort of speaking on what he thinks is real. And, it remains to be seen if he's right, and I hope he's right. But my pattern with him in a lot of conversations years ago where he would speak what he thinks. And if he can mess around too, but when he's up there on the podium, I don't think he's looking to mess around.
Well, we'll look at the track record here as he gets up there and says what he says and makes whatever statements / predictions he makes, and then we can track him and hold him accountable.
Yeah, and he wants to be held accountable, too, for that matter. I can tell you that.
Jusuf Nurkic, new jazz man, meeting the media right now. Let's listen in for a few minutes.
Can you hear me now?
1 second.
Okay.
Zoom calls are awesome. I thought we were past all of that, but apparently not. They're still working on it. All right. Well, we'll get back to that if necessary.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank goodness. There is a rumor / speculation out there, which may just be part of rumor / speculation season. And the NBA does drama as well as anyone, and their version of the hot stove league is certainly entertaining. But it has to do with the Jazz and Walker Kessler. And we've heard forever teams inquire about him, but what is the price tag? And we will discuss that momentarily. But first, here's Jusuf for real now. Jusuf Nurkic, introductory media press conference.
Okay, first up is Ryan Miller.
Hey, Jusuf, Ryan Miller from KSL.com here. Just first off, what was your reaction when you found out about the trade?
I mean, reaction, it was funny the way it happened. I was with my wife at the movie theater, so I got a phone call, and you never know what's going to happen in the NBA, regardless of what they're saying. But I was glad it was Utah, and just looking forward to great organization. Know a lot about how they do and what they do as far as getting ready and prepare for the game. So I was really excited for that.
All right, next up, Andy Larson.
Jusuf, at this point, you are the oldest player on this Jazz roster.
30, is that old?
On this team, it is.
Okay.
And I'm curious just kind of what you think of kind of that maybe responsibility in terms of leadership and, just playing with a bunch of young kids.
I mean, I'm excited, first and foremost, adding a lot of young guys who can play, super talented, athletic. It's a dream for me. I can pass the ball and with the coach and he's Seamus of the play, I think I can be really successful with them. But also, like you said, now with the veteran, even sounds crazy that I'm oldest. But looking forward, man, just to be leadership for them, showing the way, and how to be a pro is super important for them.
Lauren Green.
Hi, Lauren Green, sideline reporter with the Utah Jazz. Welcome to Utah, first of all.
Thank you.
When you look at the way Coach Hardy plays and the style he plays, how do you envision yourself fitting into his scheme?
I mean, I always love him or like him a lot from the side, and just the way he, carry himself at the game and then as a coach. Even I was really surprised at the time when he got a job that he was super young, if I can say it that way. But I think I fit perfectly. Like, I think they play so much off the ball stuff. Might be like, top 5 in the league last season, whatever. But I just love to share the ball, and then when everybody's involved, I think he's doing a really job with that.
JP
Chunga, UtahJazz.com. What have you found to be some of the useful traits to sticking around in the league and having so much longevity?
Well, like I said, I think the best day of, young, when I was drafted, I feel like that's the best day of their lives, changing their lives. I think it's super important to enjoy that day. But also it's it's a trick. Like you have to be aware you didn't make it. You made it to NBA, but you have to be able to stick a long time. You have to be a pro, do all the necessary thing. I guess care, respect people, not necessarily people work for you, but people work with you. So I think that's a big difference. Understanding you have so many people working with you, but not for you. So I think that's what takes you over the hump.
Andy Larson.
Hey, sorry, I didn't introduce myself either. I'm Andy Larson. I'm with the Salt Lake Tribune. But wanted to ask, have you had a conversation with either Will or the front office on kind of what your role is as far as starting or coming off the bench?
I mean, I talked to everyone, but it's too early. I don't know. It was just a lot of going on. I don't think the role and minutes and all those things come at this point. I just got here yesterday, so it's a quite journey from Europe here. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of talk of that. But like I said, it's just adjusting the time zone now for me. It's a big deal.
Ryan Miller.
You've obviously played a lot of games in Salt Lake. What kind of stands out about playing in Utah that you can remember?
So seriously, like when I felt like I always loved the fans, and I felt like it was always tough to play here. But knowing what I know in 11 years in the NBA, about Utah, I feel like I had to delete it because what I just saw yesterday and today and day before, I feel like it was super, if I can say it, like super nice state that I was surprised. Remind me a little bit of Portland and Phoenix, like kind of mix. But it's just unique as far as like didn't know much about it, like living wise, but like saw some few homes and they're huge houses. So it's cool to be in an environment where it's like a family style. So good culture. Like I saw the people on the airport and on a plane and kind of stick like how hard they love the Jazz. So I think that's a huge and a really big plus in our league.
Jeff Rainier.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Rainier with Fox 13. What do you know about Walker Kessler, an emerging center here with the Jazz? What do you know about his game, and do you think you could be a mentor for him and the other bigs on this roster?
I mean, super, super athlete, young, talented guy. We can definitely take a next step about screening and out passing. So looking forward to work with him, but help him in any way I can. But anybody, pretty much. I feel like a lot of guys can benefit of the way I play. But I understand we're totally different and a game style of play. But that's not necessarily bad. I think that's good for the coach and for us to kind of play differently, but also can learn for one another.
JP.
With Eurobasket this offseason, how does that help when it comes to getting back into NBA play?
I mean, it just helped to have a competition, before NBA, and a really good competition. Like you said, we have a few games, but also we have like a month and a half training camp. So it will be, obviously we work differently over there, like 2-a-day practices and stuff. So it will be plenty of practice and just being in game shape. You help to come in a camp, basically live, just playing the games. And I think that's super helpful.
Eric
Sparopoulos, UtahJazz.com. Jusuf, you started to expand your range and take more threes in recent years. How much of an emphasis is that for you moving forward?
I feel like I can shoot the ball, and also it's just, I guess, find the balance of that. But it's also the coach and coaching staff and teammates trusting you. So it takes both sides. Confidence is one thing, and how much coach feed you with the confidence, you just translate to the floor. So, like I said about role or the way I want to play, it just depends on a will and coach how we're gonna do it. So,
Ben Anderson.
Ben Anderson, KSL Sports. Jusuf, you mentioned your wife. Can you tell us a little bit about your life off the court?
Life?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just easy, chill guy, man. Just drinking coffee. You're going to see me pretty much everywhere in Utah, around the, just be outside as much as possible. I'm happy I saw there's plenty of coffee shops and food. So just, hanging out with fam and nothing special, man.
Ryan Miller.
All right, there is Jusuf Nurkic, the new Jazz man. He is on his fourth team in 4 years now. He had a couple of major injuries, and he was 15.10 rebound guy before that, but a broken leg, a broken wrist, and his production been dropping the last 3 years. I don't expect you have much in the way of expectations for him, PK. I don't think I have much in the way. He's got 1 year left on his deal, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, he is a big guy. Maybe they can flip him for somebody here. We'll see how it works out, but pretty low expectations going into this.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. 30 years old, so I think he still wants to play a few more years, so he should have motivation to be whatever he's got to give it. So, you need a backup center, and maybe he can teach Kessler a few tricks of the trade type of thing there. To think that I think it's kind of cool that 30 years old, he is the oldest guy on the roster. And he acknowledges that. He says, 30's old? No, well, it's not, but on this team it is. So the idea is more of get Sexton out of the way to develop the guys, and this is what you had to take back.
Yep. DJ PK, we were going to talk NBA. We're going to talk Jazz rookies. Ace Bailey, expectations for the fifth pick in the draft with Brian Geltzeiler, SiriusXM NBA radio host and contributor. Talk Damian Lillard's next move. What would he advise? We'll get to all of that next with one of our favorite NBA voices. Stick around.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G. The immediate resolve of this is best case scenario for Jake, Getlzeiler, and for BYU. We were thinking that this civil suit would tie him up to past 2026, and that would hamper him, and that would leave BYU on the hook for questions. BYU would have to answer, well, yeah, we don't know, 2-3 weeks into the season. Is Jake Getlzeiler, how's the civil suit? Is it going to get resolved? If it does get resolved, will he be eligible? And then the same questions for Jake. Now at Big 12 Media Day, we can start talking about Trace and Bourget. We can start talking about McKay Hillstead. It could be, hey, so Jake's gone? Yeah, Jake's gone. Okay, so tell me about this Bear kid that you brought in for Stanford, and how does he fit into Aaron Roderick's system? And what does the quarterback room look like now that Getlzeiler's gone? And we're talking football.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK brought to you in part by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at trajanwealth.com. DJ PK, we're joined now by Brian Geltzeiler, SiriusXM NBA radio host, NBA TV contributor, and longtime guest on our show. Brian, good morning. Happy
Hello,
4th of July
boys.
weekend.
How we doing?
Good.
Happy 4th to you as well.
There is we love stories, right? This is why we do what we do, and I find Ace Bailey to be a fascinating story on multiple levels. We've got, well, first off, the headline in Utah was, oh no, another guy who doesn't want to come to Utah, right? And that taps into old wounds and all that kind of stuff. But lost in that, which is fairly obvious to people who are following, is, well, he didn't want to work out in Philly. He didn't want to work in Charlotte. So Utah's on a list. And there was, they were trying to get him somewhere in the draft. It didn't work out. Now he's here. I actually think people should be, and I'm interested to see if you agree with this, actually people should be thankful for this if they think he's going to be good, because I don't think he would have dropped from 3rd to 5th without all of that going on. That was just part and parcel of what had to happen to get him here. So how high is his ceiling? What are the odds he pays off and gets somewhere near that ceiling? Do you worry the fact that he is a shot maker, which is useful when the shot clock is running out and something you really need on an NBA team, can also be a negative because it can turn guys into unrepentant gunners who are inefficient and puts a cap on them winning. So there's a ton of storylines with this guy. Jump in anywhere you want and tell us what you think, because he's the 5th pick, big investment, and people are really intrigued here.
A couple layers here. So let's talk first about the draft layers, then we'll get into basketball fit stuff and what's going on with the Jazz to create a smooth runway for him, because I think it's very important. Number one, I think Philly and Charlotte both made very crucial mistakes for entirely different reasons. Philadelphia is, and they really kind of don't have a choice but Philadelphia is deluding themselves into believing that they're still a title contender. And, listen, when hoping is a strategy and hoping Joel Embiid can stay on the floor enough to be a title contender is really the best strategy they have. So Philly, in that delusion, went and took a guy that in their estimation, and VJ Edgecombe, is more NBA ready right now than Ace Bailey. And that probably is true. And they liked Edgecombe's attitude a little bit better. Bailey did not want to be there. Bailey didn't want to be there because he's looking ahead to his second contract and wanted to go somewhere where he could have a high usage rate and post some good counting stats to be able to use that to leverage his way into a second contract. It's the type of thing where the Jonathan Kuminga thing here becomes a cautionary tale, right? A guy that ended up in a winning situation in Golden State on what was essentially a gap year and has struggled to connect with the coach, has struggled to fit in with the system, and now is going into a second contract world where there's, do you pay him on production or do you pay him on potential, right? So he's trying to find the right deal. Not a lot of cap space out there, but that's the cautionary tale here in Bailey in terms of him not wanting to go somewhere where he felt as though there wasn't going to be the level of usage that he wanted. I thought Charlotte made a huge mistake, even bigger than Philly in that respect, because if I'm Charlotte, look at how Boston built championship team. It's Tatum and Brown, and they built around these two long wings. Well, they already have Brandon Miller in Charlotte. You could have paired Miller with Ace Bailey, and you decided not to. Why? Because Ace told you didn't want to be there? Because Ace didn't want to work out for you? Because Ace said they want to play with LaMelo Ball? All those things. You know what? You have to sometimes, trust the system and say, we're going to take this guy and we're going to do everything we can with the guy to make it work. And that entered Danny Ainge. And Ainge did exactly that. And listen, in the end, what's happening with Bailey is his agent, Omar Cooper, who, by the way, butchered his own son's situation by pushing him into the draft too soon, Sharif Cooper, a few years back, is not an experienced agent, is not even an accredited agent, but for whatever reason, Bailey and his family trust him. And he kind of did a half measure here. If you don't want to go somewhere, be Eli Manning, be John Elway, state it, come out and say it. This passive aggressive, I'm just not going to work out for you, and maybe you'll get the message. Well, Danny Ainge doesn't receive messages like that. And you could have very well told Danny, we're not going to go, we don't want to go there, and we don't want to report. And Danny may have taken you anyway, because that's how Danny operates. But I think when you look at what Danny's trying to do to create the right atmosphere for Bailey, you just have to look into two moves that the Jazz made over the course of the last couple of days. Number one, the trading of Colin Sexton. And listen, Sexton I think, can help a winning team. I don't think he was bad for the Jazz, but at his core, he is a chucker. And you got to be, so is Ace Bailey. But if you want Bailey to develop, that ball's got to be in his hands a lot. The second move was the buyout of Jordan Clarkson. And make no mistake, the reason they couldn't find a market for Jordan Clarkson, that was 14 mil, guys, which is not in this in this financial climate in the NBA, is not really an objectionable number. No one would take him at that number. Why would no one take him at that number? Because he is a chucker that makes George Costanzo look shy. The guy never met a shot he didn't like, and I don't like that addition for the Knicks that they're making, because the Knicks have a ball movement problem and brought in a guy that loves to just shoot it every time he touches it. But what the Jazz did here is clear those two guys out to bring Bailey. And listen, Keontae George still has some of those tendencies too, but I think they believe he can grow out of them. And they brought in Walter Clayton Jr. to be, for lack of a better term, even though he's a young guy, the adult in the room, an experienced college player. And they cleared the decks for these younger players to be able to come in and play big roles early on. That makes it more attractive for Ace Bailey to be there. The Angels are going to do a really good job with this, and they just are. It was the right pick for the Jazz. I love it. I thought the Jazz were one of the big winners on draft night, getting Bailey and getting Walter Clayton Jr. I think you just kind of have to wait and see how all this plays out. Bailey is the thing about Bailey that I think is really important to understand, and why I think Omar Cooper screwed this up, and in some ways screwed him up a little bit, because all of a sudden Ace Bailey's got a reputation of being, for lack of a better term, a little bit of a prima donna, a little bit of a high-maintenance entitled type of guy. You talk to anybody that spent time with Ace Bailey, he is not that kind of kid. He's a really, really good kid who wants to work hard, wants to get better, that believes in his own potential and is very, very sure of himself. By the same token, a good person, a good teammate, and he's a good guy. And the thing is, he just hasn't the reputation now, because of how clumsily this was handled, It's not a great reputation. But Danny Ainge got a really talented, and Austin Ainge, I got to credit both of them, got a really talented long wing that's going to fit really well in today's NBA and may take a couple of years to marinate to get there. But he will get there. He's a young guy. In the end, I love the pick. That's, I guess, the best way I can break it down.
So then you mentioned that the handlers sort of screwed it up. Do you have any concern that there'll be other things that become issues in the next couple of years or so from those people?
No, and I don't have those concerns because I think once that the Jazz have Ace in the facility, once they have him, kind of ingrained in the organization, there's not going to be a ton of dealing with this agent. It's going to be Danny, Austin, Will Hardy, and the player. And I think when those relationships are starting to develop and are cemented, I just don't think the agent's going to matter all that much. And what are we looking at with the agent? Well, again, we're going to worry about having to deal with the agent again in 4 years, 3 years. Like, it's not, to me, that's not really a relevant thing. Once he's drafted, you have him there. Listen, they're going to sign him to the full number on the rookie scale that they want to sign him for. They're not going to play games with him. That'd be stupid to do that. And Danny and Austin Ainge are not stupid. Neither is Justin Zanuck. I mean, they'll take care of all this. So I think I just think it's a really good thing across the board. And it's the type of thing when the Jazz talk about, and, your fans have a sensitivity to the fact that free agents don't necessarily run their hard time getting a star, all of those things. Bailey's the guy that this is going to be built around, not Larry Markkinen. The timelines don't match up, and I still think that at some point, come trade deadline, after he's proved his worth a little bit this season again, because he did not have a good season last year and the contract's enormous, I think that he's going to be a candidate to be moved. I really do. So I think Bailey is going to be the centerpiece of all this. Walter Clayton's going to play a big role, and Danny's kind of gutted this thing out in the way that he did, and now the rebuild starts in earnest.
This is getting pretty into the weeds, and I don't normally get there, but the Ace Bailey thing got pretty wild in the 48 hours right before and after the draft. And the guy I'm blanking on his name now, he runs the agency that was signed with, came out and explained basically Omar, the manager who's tight with the family and has known him forever, he's the one that created this scenario and was trying to get him to a certain club. And basically in this interview that he does, Omar's been pushed to the back bench, and the agent, Danny, is now running things and is going to do it much more traditionally. And watching the boss talk about Omar and Danny, I thought the boss realizes this is a PR mess. And I think the boss knows if this doesn't get straightened out, then other agents are going to come and try to pry the client away, saying you're not being represented well. You got everybody from Eddie Johnson on Phoenix Radio that PK heard to Derek Favors on Twitter blasting you. You're costing yourself money. Jump to our firm. So this agency, who hadn't been in charge, the manager had been, I think they've really taken charge of the reins. I think all that stuff is in the past. I think it's all being smoothed over. And as usual, it comes down to money. Follow the money, and that's why it's getting smoothed over.
Well, they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose the client for the second contract.
Exactly.
The second contract's where the big money comes in.
Yep.
So they don't. But listen, it's in relating to Eddie Johnson, who you guys know is my colleague at NBA Radio, and is also a very good friend. And Eddie and I have had this conversation both on and off air. Listen, Omar Cooper, our channel, NBA Radio. Okay, and one of our executive producers who produces NBA Today with Justin Terman, Eddie Johnson host, reached out to Omar Cooper asking him if he wanted to come onto their show and tell his side of this. Mm-hmm. He asked for money. And I say that because it's not common in this industry, okay, to go and do a guest hit and be paid for it. It just isn't. It's not how the industry works. He asked for money. And listen, Justin, you guys, I don't know if you listen a lot to Justin Termini, but Justin Termini doesn't suffer fools. You play that game, Justin Termini will go blow you up on his show. And he blew up Omar Cooper. And by the way, the overwhelming support in the background from NBA people was like, yeah, he deserved to be blown up on that. Point being is that they had to fade Cooper here. They had to do that right now. And the thing is, you can't get in the way of the kid's relationship with this organization and his development until you're talking money. And with the rookie scale, it's easy. You slot him in. He was a number 5 pick. You give him the maximum amount of what you can give him because, I mean, there's a rookie slot, but you can play games anywhere from 80% to 110% of the rookie slot, depending upon your level of cap space and what you agree with the player. I think Bailey will get closer to 110%. Bailey's they'll come up with the right number for him to make sure that he feels comfortable and happy and valued. Like, it's at this stage, what Omar Cooper can do, what the agency even can do, is relatively limited. Ace Bailey's a member of the Utah Jazz. He's going to sign his contract. They're going to offer him the right kind of contract in the rookie scale with whatever little bit of wiggle room they have. And Ace Bailey's going to be on the Jazz. And he's going to develop under Will Hardy and under the Ainges, and he's going to get ingrained with his teammates, and it's going to work. It's going to work because the Jazz have put a really good organization in place with the right kind of people, and Ace Bailey's the right kind of kid. And everything else at this stage, it wasn't last week, but everything else at this stage is just a lot of noise.
Are the Nets a good spot for Demon out of BYU?
I think so. Listen, I really like Demon more than others. I'm not one of these that is panning the Nets draft. And I had Fran Fraschilla on my show last week, and he told me why I was dead wrong. I think Demon listen, the Nets right now for a rookie are a great spot for anybody. And I think Demon will do very well there. He's going to play next to Michael Porter in the front court. The thing for him is the shooting piece was bad this year for BYU, but at the Combine, there were teams that liked the way he shot the ball. And I think that the criticism of the Nets with Demon was that you left Malawak on the board. It was less about Demon and more about the fact that, come on, Malawak, it was you guys. I was on with you telling you I think the Jazz should be looking at him at 5. You know what I mean? I love Malawak, and I'm not alone in that. So that was the criticism of the Nets pick of Demon, less about Demon. But again, to me with Demon, it comes down to one thing and one thing only. Can you be a 37% three-point shooter in the NBA? And if you can, this guy's going to be a very good NBA player. Big handles, passes. I think he'll be okay defensively. I think he'll be able to use the size a little bit. I certainly think that he'll be passable on that end of the floor. It's a multi-talented player with size who can play a bunch of different positions also. So I like the player. I like the pick. In that spot, I would never have left Malawak on the board, but I do think Demon will have a chance to succeed in Brooklyn. I will tell you this, Porter's a good player for him to have there because Demon likes to pass and Porter loves to put his shots up, and now Porter's going to get more shots than he ever dreamed of being the guy in Brooklyn.
Brian Geltzeiler joining us, SiriusXM NBA radio host and NBA TV contributor. Damian Lillard went to Weber State. He's got a lot of fans here in Utah. He's suddenly a free agent. Surprise. If you were advising him, when and where should he sign?
Well, as soon as possible, because wherever you're going to sign, you want to make sure that you are in lockstep with your rehab, with that medical staff, and having your own doctors and everybody kind of working together on your behalf. But this thought that you're going to rehab on your own and then just present to a team, I think you got to be careful. If I'm Lillard, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign a 2-year deal. There's no team that I think will give him a player option in the second year, which essentially we rehab you and they'll let you go shop. No. So I think he should go find a 2-year deal. And I kind of think when you look, there's 4 teams to me that I think are very good fits for Damian Lillard. Number 1 is the Boston Celtics. They're in a gap year. Lillard's having his own gap year. They're kind of changing things around a little bit there regarding, they traded Porzingis, they traded Holiday. It appears, at least as of right now, they're keeping Jaylen Brown and Derek White. And if they're going to keep Jaylen Brown and Derek White, I would look to bring Lillard in, knowing you can have him on a league minimum deal because he's getting paid by the Bucks either way. And just see how it works. See how it works with him at point guard. You have the defensive infrastructure, at least you had the defensive infrastructure to be able to capably hide him. So I love Boston. 2 other East teams, I think Orlando would be somewhere that they should look at. Good compliment to Jalen Suggs. Will he be happy being a bench player at this stage of his career? I'm not sure. He would be a bench player on Orlando, but I think he's a very good fit there. I think Detroit would be a good place for him next to Cade Cunningham. Again, they do have the defensive infrastructure, at least before they signed Duncan Robinson, to be able to hide him. So we'll see, but I think that was a nice spot. And then, probably maybe the most intriguing fit of all is Minnesota. Minnesota really can't do anything at point guard that takes him beyond league minimum. Mike Conley's on the last year of his deal, 1 year, $10 million. And, we love Mike Conley. You guys in Utah love Mike Conley. He has been a wonderful guy and a wonderful player in this league for many years. In the playoffs, he didn't look like he had a lot left. And again, he'll come back this year. He'll take a leadership role in Minnesota. But how great would that be to be able to rehab Lillard all year and then hand that Conley spot over to Lillard when Conley's contract expires at the end of next year? So those are the 4 locations. If I'm Damian Lillard, I would look very heavily at. Like Orlando, probably the 4th of the 4. Boston and Minnesota at the top of that list. Detroit, not a bad fit either.
Not the Warriors, his old hometown, huh?
Nah, I mean, I just don't know at this stage of Steph Curry's career how you can think you can pair him with Damian Lillard and you're going to be able to stop people from scoring and keeping the ball out of your own basket. I just thought I think the Warriors, that's fun. It makes for a cool story. It's not all that realistic. I just don't think that it is. Listen, the Lakers are frankly more realistic than that, really, because the Lakers may have to do something regarding Austin Reeves if they truly want to switch around this roster, or maybe a LeBron trade comes down the pike because we saw the statement from him last week and we know he's getting antsy. And quite frankly, I think if LeBron had more leverage, he'd be out of there by now. He just doesn't have a ton of leverage. He had to exercise that option because that money wasn't going to be available for him. It's something that Rich Paul will never tell you, but that's the reality of the situation. So the Lakers would not be a terrible fit, but I would not. If I'm Lillard and the Warriors, I just don't think it's a good fit for either side.
Brian, we love it as always. Thanks for joining us, and happy holiday weekend.
Same to you guys. Enjoy the holiday, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Brian Geltzeiler, SiriusXM NBA radio host and NBA TV contributor. Your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Here of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest. Listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Here of the Week. Sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
Time for your feedback. The esteemed Brett McMurphy. We've had him on the show many times. One of a handful of national college football writers. He's got the Utes in the playoff, winning the conference. Wouldn't that be a great bounce back? And it's leading to a lot of awesome responses. Tyson, so same as last season, huh? Laughing, crying emoji. There was a quarterback injury factored in there. They're not going to have an injured quarterback every year, are they? Some point they're due a little good fortune there.
Yeah, and then they got Isaac Wilson has more experience, obviously, if that were to happen.
Right. PC Darrell, facts. As a Ute fan, fully embracing that prediction. Big T Money 25. Tyler says, what? Wherever Brett lives, weed is obviously legal and maybe other drugs, and he could possibly be an alcoholic. I think they'll be better. But playoffs? We talking about playoffs? Come on now. A little over the top from Tyler on the holiday weekend.
We'll see. It's possible.
Tony says, yeah, that'd be interesting. We have a really good offseason, but let's see how the first 5 games go. I think we end up top middle, which would be a huge accomplishment from last year.
Top middle? What is that?
Like, I assume that means like 4th or 5th or something. Not at the very top, but near the middle of the top. Top third, top quarter, in the mix. Which, as we pointed out last year, there were 7 teams separated by 1 game. So it was almost the top half of the league was, a drop pass here, an interception there, maybe a field goal over here, away from being in the conference title game.
Sure.
You get that exactly close, you can woulda, coulda, shoulda yourself into anything.
I got you.
And where does the 4th of July rank on your holiday list is our other question this morning. True Blue BYU. Number 1, Christmas. Number 2, Thanksgiving. Number 3, Memorial Day. Number 4, 4th of July. Ranking it 4th.
Okay, I'd flip the 3rd and 4th, but that's his choice.
Sofa Tofu. Wow, that's something. Number 1, opening day. Not officially a holiday. Number 1, opening day. Number 2, Christmas. Number 3, Halloween. Not officially a holiday. Number 4, Thanksgiving. And number 5, the 4th of July.
Well, I've always said if it makes your top 5, you must be pretty good.
Nothing serious, Lane Abbott. It says it's third, and the list goes like this. Number 1, Christmas. Number 2, Thanksgiving. Number 3, July. Number 4, New Year's. I think a lot like Lane. That's a really good list right there.
New Year's Day is not a holiday.
It is literally a holiday, PK.
Except we celebrate it the night before.
Well, some people do.
Everybody does. New Year's Eve is bigger than New Year's Day.
Well, depends on your parade and your bowl game, I suppose. But you know what? We can argue that when New Year's rolls around. Right now, we got to head out for the weekend and let Jake and Ben take over right here on The Zone.